Here. Present. Next item on the list is selecting a chair of the commission. So we'll open the floor to nominations for chairman. Don't everybody speak at once.
This is always a fun part.
Go ahead and embarrass yourself.
Anybody speak? Anybody speak? I'd like to nominate myself for chairman.
Okay. We have a nomination. Do we have a second?
Second.
A nomination and a second. Are there any other nominations? All in favor?
There's got to be a better way to do this.
There is. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, swap seats.
This is
Got your
all
computer back?
I use it anyway.
This is all your stuff.
Get this out of your way though. Come up from that. I have my chair.
What's your chair?
though.
I thought it felt funny.
Sorry. I left my computer, but I have to have my chair. All right, so the next item will be to seat the vice chair. Nominations.
Nominate John Noster.
I'll second it.
You have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I did not surrender that.
Okay, everybody had a chance to look over the agenda.
Chairman Glover, we do have an addition. We'd like to add on approval of the jail heating unit. The estimate came in at more than what you previously approved at the emergency meeting. Estimate.
Is it in all this stuff that was on that last night?
No.
No? Then I don't either.
Well, I move that we approve the agenda with the addition of consider approval of expenditure for new heating unit for the jail on the agenda.
The motion to have a second.
Second.
The motion second to approve the agenda with the addition of the jail heater system. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Good. Okay, I determine the date of the board retreat. That's something, it's not news.
No, turn over. Page 1 over. Yeah.
Oh. Saving paper. Okay. Okay, on the agenda, we have a ceremonial item for this Courtney, and it is a proclamation for National Stalking Awareness Month. Would you like to speak on that?
Would you like me to
You,
here, or-
you can come up here if you want to. I'll pick you up.
Good morning, commissioners. As some of you might know, January is National Stalking Awareness Month. This is near and dear to my heart. My position as victims advocate, I deal with a lot of domestic violence, and domestic violence goes hand in hand with stalking. Between 6 to 7.5 million people are stalked in 1 year. So that's not just continuously, that is a 1-year stat. Stalking can increase the risk of homicide by an intimate partner by 3 times 3. So every intimate partner stalking increases the rate of our homicide. The biggest reason I'd like to get this out there to our public is because only 6% of stalking is reported. So, and that's nationwide. So it's something that's not talked about very often, and it's, but it needs to be. It's very a taboo subject, but it needs to be talked about. It can lead to depression, PTSD, anxiety, and a host of other mental health issues. So I think it's something that we need to show that us as a county and us as law enforcement are not going to put up with it and take a stand against it. So I ask you today to sign this proclamation to show that we as a county are going to take a stand against stalking. I've brought my sheriff with me, and I've invited the police chiefs from the county to be part of this as well, to show that we are all going to take a stand against this.
Good.
There are no other questions. I'll make a motion that we proclaim, is it January or February?
January.
We proclaim January as Stalking Awareness Month in Rio Grande County.
Thank you.
Second.
The motion is second. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming in.
And I'd like to get a picture of all the law enforcement here with you guys as we sign this, just to show and to share with our community.
Do you have the original there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now we're gonna get dinged for not having our mask on in the photo.
I mean, we should probably put them on, but that is completely up to you, sir.
All law enforcement sit down except.
You don't want to be that guy.
Be polite.
Where do you want it?
Sorry. Sneak in behind and they can.
Come get in here.
I can sneak over one more. There we go. Hey, way to use your noodle there, Frank. Good job.
Thank you. At least once a day, right?
I guess.
I'll take a picture.
Thank you. I was like, someone needs to take.
One more.
Thank you, Art.
Hey, just so you guys know, I smiled.
Yeah, right.
That was a nice smile.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm gonna slide this back. This is like right on the
Yeah,
edge, and it made me nervous.
So you have to get used to the new format too.
Yeah, that one caught me off guard too.
Got that.
Okay, at this time, we're going to open up the floor for public comment. If there's anyone who'd like to speak, be allowed 3 minutes to speak and there'll be no decisions made. Anyone? Nope. Okay. Close public comment. Consent agenda. Everybody had a chance to look over everything, consent agenda. Is there any questions, anything, any additions?
On the technical correction to the supplemental budget, I have a question on that. It's just, can you explain just briefly what that was?
We can bring Debbie in so that we get our facts straight.
And that'll be a new
Source.
resolution also, right, that we have to vote on?
Yes, the title of the resolution was fine-tuned from the draft that was in your packet, but the content is the same.
Okay.
We'll let Debbie give you an overview there.
She's coming.
Did you guys see on this one? I heard you asking about that.
Yeah, we're gonna have to add that to the AP also. I guess we better talk about that too. It wasn't in the APs, but she needs the check cut.
Oh, okay. So while we're waiting on that, we had one addition to the consent agenda, and that was request from the treasurer's office for check to be cut today for endpoint. So we add that to it.
So on the original resolution, I had just forgot to include the original budgets that we approved last year in 2019. So the first one is on page 2. I don't have a memo. Do you have a memo? What was a memo that was supposed to go with it?
It's in there. I can get a copy if you need it.
This is the memo right here.
Yeah, so it tells you exactly where the changes were. So it was from the capital expense on page 3. And that would be for the Conservation Trust Fund. I forgot to include the 12,700 in there.
Okay.
So I included that. And then on the other one, it was for the page 2. Capital expense on page 2 from, I forgot to include the 70,000 original budget for the lease capital expense. Overall, the last page totals were correct. I just wanted to make that clear that the original budget was 70,000 for the capital expenditure on the second page, and on the third page, I wanted to include the original budget for the grant matching funds. But if you look at the last page, the fund totals are correct.
All of these down here.
Yeah, those don't change. I just didn't include them on the detail.
Then the question I had was, you reference here the coronavirus relief funds, CARES Act. How did that show up in here?
We already approved this. We already approved the original one back on December 30th.
30th.
Then that was already on there, and I think
So
I
we didn't
explained.
need to revise that then.
No, everything is correct except for those 2 items on the memo.
Okay. Thank you for answering. the
Yeah, I
question.
just wanted to make sure it was right. Line items, really, the grand totals were okay, but I wanted to make sure the line items are right.
Sure. Thank you. Now my memo
Back
back.
to you. And whose is this? Belongs to me. That's your question?
Okay, thanks, Debbie.
Sure it is.
Okay.
So you're looking for a motion
For a
then?
motion on the consent agenda.
So moved.
All right. I'll second it.
A motion is second on the consent agenda. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
I don't know if this needs all of us or not. Thanks, Louise.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll never be.
Just stack them on.
Stack them up and give them that. Anything that has her signature line on it.
Among other
On the
things.
last page, yeah, that one.
Would hope.
Yeah, carefully through.
Yeah.
Sign and they'll turn it back into.
Oh,
Judy. All right. actions for the Board of Social Services execution of certificate of compliance. Trust that's in there.
Does that take a motion or can that just be done?
It takes a motion.
Yeah.
It normally would be something that would be on consent agenda, but because this was your only action as the Board of Social Services,
Kept it
it's all the
separate.
same. It's the only item you're taking action on is that board.
Well, I move that we execute the certification of compliance on the county personnel and merit system, right?
Second.
A motion second to approve the certification. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna sign this when get done.
Hmm?
I'll sign this after we're done.
Right, I think you're gonna, were you guys gonna change the signature lines on these documents?
Let's do that so that they reflect the correct thing. So we'll give you a updated original.
Signature on this one.
I believe your others were blank, so that'll work.
Okay. Okay, department heads. Road and Bridge here?
You can't tell, can you?
Oh, he's camouflaged. Oh, Patrick.
After submission. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Work that we completed base work on County Road 29. That completes all of 29 of the sections that are received a majority of the travel traffic. Unfortunately, on the upper end by where John lives, we now have water coming across the road and icing up. So we've got our annual ice issues there. We'll be closing that portion of the road off. So you should see a reduction in
Traffic?
hopefully.
I make money or those guys out of there.
Or I was gonna say, or a increase in revenue based on toll company bills. We completed several small projects, including bridge rail maintenance, some bridge deck repair, abundance of tree trimming and yard maintenance. Just kind of day in, day out stuff that we have to keep up on so we don't get inundated with it. We completed our year-end inventory on January 31st as required. We compiled all our data, checked all our inventory. We submitted that to WSB, Wall Smith and Bateman, and we brought a copy up here for the office here for when the auditors come in. We continue to grade as the weather permits. Grading hasn't been too terrible bad, although the tops are starting to freeze pretty hard. And we're only able to do minimal, top end grading, nothing in the bar ditch. We were able to purchase 2 pieces of equipment through the CDOT online auction, one 4-wheel drive plow and an additional hot oil tank. We already have the plow here. We still have to pick up the hot oil tank. It is in Nucla, Colorado, so it's a little bit of a stretch to coordinate weather, good roads, and some of those things in order to get that back. Again, that's to enhance our oil storage capacity at the hot plant, which we're encountering those problems with shipping and the availability of oil to our area. Front Range takes all of that, and it's a struggle for us to make our projects function at a efficient rate. So we're trying to increase our storage so that we can keep running through the week. Work that we have proposed is, again, we'll participate in a joint project with the National Wildlife Refuge, working on a parking area. As we speak, we should finish that today at around noon. At least by the end of the day, we'll end up finishing our portion of that project. With that being completed, we'll begin our work on the 1 south between the 1 east and 2 east. That'll be base work there. We've got some culverts to put in, but again, that probably won't happen until first part of March, maybe mid-March. It says we'll complete and submit the HUTF report. We've already completed that. It's been reviewed by Ms. Klusmeyer. And so in a few minutes, I'll ask for your signature to certify the mileage that comes with that report so we can submit the final piece of the puzzle. Next week, we have our MSHA refresher training. That's an annual class we have to take in order to comply with MSHA. And then we'll send a small crew to Nucla again to retrieve this trailer. It's a all-in-one unit. It's going to take a little bit to get it here, but we'll send a small crew to accommodate that. That gets it out of CDOT's yard, and we finish up our part with Dick and Sheet and everything else. So other than the certifications, we don't really have anything other than we just continue to manage things as they come along. Snow has been a challenge, just with a few challenges within our county that we're encountering. It's ongoing problems, but we're slowly working through those. Another issue, I've met with Earl Robinson. We have yet to have a second meeting. This pertains to the airport, plowing of the airport. And I think there's ideas on each side of the rail there that we have to address, that we need to talk about. But we'll continue to plow as we need to. Of course, in emergency purposes, we'll take care of that. But again, ultimately in the end, I'm hoping that we can find a way that the airport becomes self-sufficient and they can take care of themselves, and we can take care of our stuff and they can take care of theirs. That's the ultimate goal. The other thing that I would ask is, again, I know you're setting holiday schedules and all that will be coming up today. In the past many years, Road and Bridge has always asked if we can modify our holidays, our winter holidays, i.e. Martin Luther King Day and President's Day, shift those a little bit later in the year for us. That it seems to work better. We typically end up plowing snow on those holidays anyway, so it's not really a holiday for us. In the past, there's never been a problem with that, and I would ask if we can make that adjustment to shove those two holidays a little bit further into the year for better use for our employees. And then the last thing is just the certification form for the HUTF report requires the commissioner's signature to certify the mileage that was submitted to CDOT. And so this is the actual certification on what we get paid for through HUTF. And it's an annual thing. We do it this time every year. So. Our mileage didn't change a lot based on their programs and their GIS system. It changes a tenth here or a tenth there, but all in all, we didn't add any new mileage. We didn't take any mileage away. Simply just improvements to sections of road through the county.
We need clerk to sign this one, do we? This is just go back
No,
to you.
just the commissioners. Yeah, it'll go to me and we'll submit it with the rest of the data. We have to upload the data before we can get the signature sheet. It's quite a process. And then we'll make a copy of this for your office. Get that to you. That's all we got, unless you guys have something.
Good.
Okay. Have a great day.
Good luck on that nuclear run.
Yeah. We're going to go over the Dallas Divide. We think that's the best way for us.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I've talked to CDOT and a variety of people.
Is it an oversized load?
not oversized, but it's just, it's a tank incorporated into a trailer with the heating unit on. It's a little bit
So
comfortable.
you're come down off of Norwood Hill and out that way? Really?
Isn't that like the second most dangerous highway in the state or something?
No, that's if we go further south on 550. No, we're not. I could just drive out here, take my chance there.
Thanks, Patrick.
Later, thank you guys.
Mr. Kearns?
Good morning. I haven't met Commissioner Deacon. I'm Randy Kern.
Okay.
Nice to
Scott
meet you.
Deacon, pleasure
I
to
don't-
meet you, sir.
Yeah. So I was asked to talk about the building permit report that you probably received for 2020. If you'd like, I could just really quick give a brief summary of who I am and what I do for
Right ahead.
Commissioner. Okay. Randy Kern, I've been here since June of 2004. So I'm working on my 17th year here as a building inspector. So basically what my duties include is, we review construction plans for new or remodeled, both residential and commercial buildings here in Rio Grande County. I also do that for City of Monte Vista, Town of Del Norte, and we have an IGA with Town of South Fork for just commercial. So we review the plans for compliance with our local building code. We issue the building permits, and then, periodically throughout the projects, I do on-site inspections there for building. I also do the septic system permits. So we review the plans for that, issue septic permits, and I do an on-site inspection of those. I did the plumbing permitting and inspections for about 11 years for Rio Grande County and the City of Monte Vista. Just got out of that last year. So I'm 1 year out of that program. We actually turned it back to the state of Colorado, and the timing just couldn't have been better. But you'll see by the permit report, if you compare to other years, we were really on an uptick with residential construction this year. So I got relieved of the plumbing duties, but it got made up for this year with residential construction. So I guess with that, that's kind of who I am and what I do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I also want to mention, commissioners, that Randy stepped in on New Year's Eve when we lost the heater at the jail and got us an electrician up here. We had to call somebody and say, can you come up New Year's Eve, literally, and they did. So it took them a while to find somebody, but he did it.
Awesome.
And I do
Very
have,
helpful.
thank you. I do have to give part of the credit to Commissioner Nosker because he threw out some additional names and he answered. So
That's what, we don't have a phone book anymore. What do you do?
I know. Yeah, right. Google. Okay, so everybody got a copy of the permit report. Do you have any questions about it? Basically it's just a summary of the building permits that we issued for last year and whether they were in the unincorporated portion of the county or whether they were within the city limits or town limits of Del Norte, Monte Vista. Again, with South Fork, you just see a bunch of goose eggs there. We just do commercial in the town of South Fork. So I know full well they've had plenty of residential development in town there, but we're just not involved with it. They handle that internally. And along with that, so we kind of break it out by county and the towns, and then we're showing the fee revenues. And so we had quite a significant difference there from previous year. 2019, our total revenues were $94,901.99, and 2020, we're up there almost 144,000, which, in all fairness, the Sky High project was probably it was a chunk of that, but still. And looking at on the residential side of things, 31 new single family dwellings. Well, I have to go back clear to 2008 that we've had that kind of number. Our average the last 10, 11, 12 years, 15, maybe 20. So 31 is kind of a big deal. And we're starting to see more of them in the South Fork area as well. 6 of those new dwellings were in Monte Vista, and in all fairness, 4 of them were CRHDC homes. 2 of them were in the development over behind Big R. Maloff is a developer there, but they were for spec. But on the golf course, immediate subdivisions on the golf course, we hadn't seen any new dwellings there, and probably back to when I'm referring to 10, 11 years ago. And I got 4 of them going there now. And those that are involved in the POA are saying, you got more coming this year. And so, it was not only new dwellings, but residential construction in general was on an uptick. Commercial was kind of flat, kind of average. We don't see a lot of commercial development or commercial buildings here in Rio Grande. We get some. The big one would be the Sky High Event Center, Conference Center. That was the big commercial project. The rest of them, we had a gymnasium there at the New Hope Church, and just some smaller thing, couple buildings out there at the Frontier Drive, really small scale type stuff. So not a lot on the commercial other than the Sky High. Well, I think I talked myself right out of my thoughts here. Still no questions, or?
Are they, is the church gym complete now, or?
Not quite. They haven't completed the interior. They've got a couple of restrooms in there to do. The exterior is completed. They got the septic system in kind of just as it was freezing up, getting winter here. So all the exterior stuff is done, but interior, they've got a little more to do. So
Yeah, I was up by there the other day, and it looked like this building was up, looked pretty good sitting up there. So
yeah,
bigger than I thought it was gonna be even. So.
Yeah, it's pretty good sized. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see this coming year. I think that we're just, we're kind of at the slowest time of the year for construction as we can be, but still we're getting a lot of inquiries, I think this year's really going to be maybe even more than last year. And we do have, right now, we've got 3 or 4 commercial projects that are kind of in the works. So we may see more commercial. I think commercials kind of tends to follow residential. I think if the residential really gets on an uptick, then a year or 2 later, you'll start to see more of that commercial coming through.
There's a commercial in the county, or is it the municipalities?
It's kind of both. Like the New Hope we're talking about is county, but Sky High, of course, is in town. The drive-in's county, that's out of town. I think a couple of the aircraft hangars are classified as commercial buildings, so that's county, but they're not really a commercial business type of a thing. They're just not a residential building. So anyway, yeah, if you have any questions anytime, let me know.
It was a good year.
Yeah, it was a good year. We're kind of getting our housekeeping done now. I talked to you guys about training here the other day. They're not going to hold the Education Institute in person. I've attended that for like 16 years in person. It's how I get my continuing ed to keep my certificates up. I'm banking some credit, some CEUs, so I'm not really in any trouble with that, but they are going to offer virtual classes, and maybe this will be kind of good. They're going to offer some the week we would normally be there in person, but they're only offering a couple per day. And then throughout the summer, every week, they're going to have these virtual. So I could sign up and take them here and there and still get some more credit this year. Well, see,
Right.
yeah, just keep it going. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks. Just have a great day.
You too.
You too.
Appreciate it, Randy. informal reports and follow-up.
Is this informal?
I just read it. Don't shoot me.
I brought everyone with me. It's just, first thing on we gotta talk about was the heater for CPOT over there. The email from Leslie on that. I mean, I gotta give Aardvark, they sent spec sheets and everything.
Just to give you some background on that, what happened was Chess came over and looked, Dixie pulled the plans for the jail. We don't know, I don't think they're as-built, but they were originals. And those are the heaters that are up there that were on the plans. They are discontinued and they're an operating system that we had to match. So our previous estimate was based on just a heater that was big enough.
Yeah.
We needed to get a certain kind of heater, which took Ches quite a while to find. And luckily, the company that has it, their shipping time is faster than what we were told, and they also do a free emergency ship. So while it's more expensive, we are shelling out the money to house the inmates in different jails, and so you know you got to weigh the the costs of and pipes.
Yeah. The other thing that I found out too about that unit that's up there now, it's not complete. From what I understand, it was never complete. The the fresh air return louvers and that had all been removed and the filters have been removed. Myself and Kelly went up there last week and opened it up. We had a smell of gas. We shut that down. It wasn't doing any good. It was just gas going out the air. So we shut that down. Then we found out that the louvers and that on one side were totally missing. From what we understand, they have been gone since it was put in there. So I don't know what the rest of the systems that have over there for the different pods now. CPOD, I cannot get it up to state standard, federal law. It has to be minimum 61 degrees. I can't even get to 61 degrees. Okay. We put heaters in the standpipes on the south wall so they don't freeze. So water and that side doesn't freeze. So we got electric heaters in there that we got from actually from Alamosa. The emergency manager got them for me, the big parabolic heaters. So that's helping in there.
Those are propane?
Excuse me?
The parabolics, are they propane or electric?
They're electric. They're electric. So right now, we out housing everyone from there with other jails, upwards to averaging $650 a day between Park and Saguache County. We've got those up there. Also on top of that, my APOD is down on a 14-day quarantine. That means we had a positive show up. So it was males. So that's all males in there right now are quarantined for the next 14 days. I can't put anyone in there. So if we get anyone new, I have to send them out after they get a medical release, send them out to another agency for housing.
On that, if you test them at the 7-day point, doesn't that shorten your 14-day window if they test negative?
The nurse is handling that. Okay. The only thing I did, and I've got a letter from her that we found out that there was actually a positive COVID that had come in December. And we got thank you across the board from other agencies that we held everything down and we didn't have to put the whole place into quarantine. So, you know, thanks to my medical, my nurse, and everyone working and keeping tabs on everybody health-wise, we averted a bigger quarantine than what we got now.
Are you doing the rapid test?
So as we need them, we get to test. Okay?
The rapid is not
Yeah.
the.
So we set up, we've already had a number of them go over for testing and they've come back negative, but we're just keeping an eye on everyone. Biggest thing daily. Okay, and I gotta give her credit on that. She
You
did
can
it.
hold them for what, how many hours can you hold them in the holding facility before they? go to the
We do a 72-hour medical screening in the holding site. Okay, but we only got 2 holding cells. We got a dry and a wet, what we call a wet cell. So we do a 72-hour medical hold there, and then they're placed into the general population. And at that point there, we pretty much know what's going on. We screen them as they come in. They have to do a medical screening. And if they have any symptoms, they have to get a hospital screening test in. And that's whoever the agency brings it in takes care of that. So, you know, we've got a pretty good system. It's served us well since March of last year. We've done really well. You know, I can't complain on that. So that way there, we're good. With CPOD going down, that really put a crimp in because that took away 16 spots right off the top that I can't house anyone. So, you know, as I said, as people come in, I can hold 13 right now, as long as I can rotate them. Anything more than 13, I have to send out. And, you know, we went over figures the last time, COVID, the square footage and what state and federal law says that I have to have for square footage for people. And with the COVID, that crimps that down. So I can't double stack. I can't, you know, double house, like if they're set up like CPODs, set up for 32, I can only do 16. So, yeah, it's every morning we're going through numbers, we're checking, we're seeing what we got. And working with the courts on doing GPS monitoring on people. If there's a chance that we can get them out on a GPS monitor, we do that. And that's worked well. The company in Alamosa that has the GPS monitors, they really work well with us. With the undersheriff, we make a phone call and we transport them in and we get them done right away. So, you know, there's no problem there, and the court's really good on us. So as long as we get the court order down, we're good to go. So that's how we're looking at there. I know we're rolling kind of fast here, but you know, I know you haven't been brought up on our vehicle situation and that. Lieutenant Dean has that. We've talked in the past on our vehicle situation, not getting any better. Right now I'm down to use my personal vehicle and I can't respond on calls in a personal vehicle. So
Another one go down on us just this week.
Anyway,
Then when are you gonna be seeing vehicles under the lease program?
that's what we wanted to
As
talk
soon
about.
as-
You know, the money's there. We can get things rolling on that. They come in under what we initially thought was the cost was going to be. The vehicle's going to come in under.
Well, we'll offset the heater then.
So anyway, you know, it's there, and we need to get something rolling on that really quick.
Well, we approved that though, didn't we, in the budget?
Well,
It
we
got-
approved the amount. There's money in there for that.
Okay.
And I know we went for 2 months there discussing all the stuff and that. And we're not getting any better. It's getting,
Basically, if I wait any longer, I'm gonna have to wait until the June or July.
Well, I thought when we talked last that it was gonna be, if we signed the contract and got it going, that it would start the process, and wasn't it March, April that you were gonna see vehicles?
We're looking at, from today, probably maybe 10, 11 weeks, we could possibly be seeing them.
Which
So
is
you're
fairly
talking
standard.
2.5 months, 3
Yeah.
months, which puts you into
But I never
March, April.
got the,
Yeah,
okay, we're good to go.
it kind of still made it after we made part of our decision, so. We just.
Okay, we didn't have a contract come across,
Right.
did we?
Basically, from here, the vehicles get ordered. The contract will come in when we take possession of the vehicles, and the paperwork would then be signed by you
So that's where the
guys.
confusion was on that contract initially, was if we did it before the end of the year and have vehicles in the new year. what that
Right.
does. So by doing it this way, it'll all be in
It's all in
2021.
fiscal year
Do the
2021.
budgeting, and all we
Yeah.
really need to do is
But
just
you need
tell
to get
Tyler.
it done. Is it on here? Can we do that?
we don't have the contract.
That won't come in until we
But
take.
you need the
possession of
So
authorization.
it's just the
Place the order.
authorization to go ahead and make sure we got the vehicles ordered and that.
So the
But here's what
contract would
happens.
come in and they would get that over to me for presentation to you guys and for signatures and everything. Once we take possession of vehicles, everything is approved you know, as far as that goes.
That's when
Then that's
our
when
costs.
the paperwork comes in to get the
So if we,
signatures.
we say, go ahead and place the order, and then the contract comes in and we don't like it, what happens then?
Well, and I just got an updated, as of today, I got an updated, one for each of you here with the new rate and everything
We
on
get,
it.
you want copies of that?
And the interest actually went down as well.
We're good to go. I mean, the question is there a 10% deviation from what we approved originally?
It'll be along with this quote right here, the interest and everything.
I think it's
That's
less,
what it's
right?
gonna, and it actually went down, because the interest
So the
dropped.
deviation.
It just dropped.
Good side, so we're good to go then. accordingly.
Okay.
My question is, since it's not on here, is it
Which,
No,
on the agenda?
No, but it's a previously
It's a
presented
previously approved.
yeah,
item that's already been approved. It's just a
Yeah,
matter
right.
of.
I just,
formation.
I never got the okay to
Well,
go.
yeah, yeah.
Get to work.
Make the motion, make it go.
So what are you waiting for?
Your guys, okay.
Okay,
if we wait, here's the issue. What the companies have done now, your builders, if we wait too long, then we have to wait towards the July, August timeframe, and that becomes a 2022 issue,
Yeah.
not a 2021. So they're changing their model year months. They've come back on us. So their model year starts in July now.
so let's just get it done.
I mean,
That's all I needed
it's
to
been
know.
approved. You haven't deviated
Yeah.
more than 10% from the original.
We've actually
approved
gone
amount.
down on interest. Just
Yeah.
just get it done. Let's get this thing in.
Thank you very much.
Kind of the same lines along the body cameras. Are we gonna move forward with that? We're gonna go ahead and get it done this year as well. I know we put on
I don't know,
presentations.
did we approve that?
We-
next
We've,
year?
Budget.
Yes.
In the
Yes.
budget?
Budget.
yes,
Is it deviated 10%?
yep,
It's the same.
It has?
same.
It hasn't
2000.
It's the same.
No, it
No.
hasn't. No, what we want, it hasn't.
Wait a minute. Okay,
Okay.
Okay. That's all.
Is that all you got? I got a question. It's a general question. We're talking about the heater. Okay. I'm not being obstructionist here, but I want to make sure that we've dotted all our i's and crossed our t's. We're authorized to do this outside of our normal purchasing policy, which would have required bids and all of that.
We actually don't have an approved purchasing policy that we can find,
There is one.
but we can't find evidence it was ever approved.
It's from
There's two.
2009. It's from 2009, and it doesn't address a lot of things, but it does address the need for emergency purchase.
Yeah,
And
once
once,
we have exigent circumstances here. So
Then we're okay with that.
and once we get that purchasing policy together, I mean, you don't need to come back every time. If you've got it in the budget, you've already been, the board is already.
Yeah, I'm just going
Come
on
back.
prior,
Yeah.
That's, gotcha.
yeah, we've been through this last year.
We did. So I just want to make sure that what we've done in terms of addressing the heating system, it follows whatever protocols that we're required to follow.
It's an emergency.
And then the next question is, since these systems have to be compatible, as I understand it, so how many heating units do you have?
Well, I want to get this first one done.
Right,
And then I want to do a survey on the other equipment up there, see where we're at and what is, preventive maintenance has never been done across the board.
wait, you just said they took out the louvers and the filters.
They were never there from beginning.
I guess where I'm headed with the question is, we found out through this process that there's a compatibility requirement to make this thing work. So we put this new unit in, it's compatible with the old units. And then we go out and start shopping for old units. We've locked ourselves into a type of system that has to be compatible with the unit we're purchasing now. Do we have a overall picture of if we had to replace all, is it 3 of them up there total?
Well, oh no, there's four.
4
Four
total?
total, yeah.
What that would look like?
Now, the other ones are a lot smaller because of the area and this one
Right.
here being as large as it is, it has to be able to cover 2,900 cubic feet. Okay, and that's the area in which we've got a cubic feet. Okay, so this is a larger unit on that.
Right.
As far as specs go, I can't answer that. The company would have to, but the information that we got, that under exigent emergency conditions, we can get the delivery up from what it would be from 4 to 8 weeks. We can possibly get that up. So as soon as I can get that shortened up, so he can get it here fast.
So
Maybe a couple of weeks.
talking with Ches, when I did he did a resin overheater for me when I had my building, and I know the one thing about that company is they're adaptable. They are one of the ones that has the
Yeah,
They have the capacity
adaptability,
to,
change
so
that and
it's
stuff.
not
So
one and
if we,
done and then you're stuck.
right, if we had to, we could probably.
yeah, he sent me the list, and that includes the crane, electrical, gas.
It included the electrical, because I thought your deal said it
It
didn't.
does not, it includes the electrical for that heater, but not to correct all the funky wiring. We're gonna have to bring it, and Sheriff McDonald is gonna talk to Ches today, so we can get an answer to your question of
Yeah.
when we have to replace those.
Where does funky wiring fit in the purchasing policy?
Funky wiring
This
is
is-
something.
Well, you
I've
know
heard
that.
stories
Page
about
2.
how we got the funky wiring, but we
Page
have
2.
funky wiring.
That could turn into, once you start, it's like
Yeah,
you change the kitchen sink and then.
Yeah.
remodel it.
What I do like,
we have to bring somebody in probably, and you'll have to talk to Ches.
yeah,
about
and we'll
when
talk
the-
to Chad.
when the
He's got
time is.
everything that handled there. One of the good things that I do like with the company and with him, the company will send a technician here when we go to fire it up, make sure everything's working, complete the all warranty work, and have everything online. So there will be a company rep here. It's just not, okay, ready to go fire it. No.
So
They'll
the
be here.
installing, the contractor that installs it, there'll be somebody else. coming
Yep, the company will come in with one of their people and make sure it's done right.
in.
Which
You
I
need
like.
from us is authorization to expend more than we originally authorized, is that correct? And it's 58,000 plus
Yeah,
because of funky wiring?
He's got the exact
Yeah,
estimate
it's-
there.
58,790 less funky wiring.
So how do we,
The overall wiring situation, Ches will not correct. We need to have an electrician.
It'll have to
come
be
in
brought back
this is
after we get a
done.
bid
Bring
on
it
it.
up to code.
And, Pro Electric has been in, they were in with us when we started putting the heaters in. They went through and checked the wiring for us so we could run heaters. So that would probably be a company that, but I'll find out from Chaz today, once we get this thing started and say, okay, what else do I need?
so that is an unknown, but it's gonna have to be done. We're not just gonna pigtail
No, we
that
gotta
new
make sure-
unit and
No,
marginal wiring.
No,
We need to make sure that wiring isn't gonna contribute to
Yeah.
further heaters going out.
Right.
Because from what I understand, it's an accumulation of DIY projects
yes,
that we have up there. right now.
from our DIY contractors.
yeah.
Was that your fault?
No.
So right now, that's the big thing. The vehicles take care of, the heaters take care of, body water camera. Just a quick update, and I left Nancy and I keep her involved in it. We talked about it probably a couple months ago, is ACLU is keeping an eye on us. Okay, I just had to submit a jail population to them, which goes along with, started out with a couple of the other counties that have been filed under lawsuits because of housing. So, and so anyway, I think we're doing pretty good on that. We went ahead and submitted it. I give Nancy a copy so she's aware that the ACLU sent us letters and keep us up on it. Other than that, did I miss anything? Computers are going down. Yeah. Other than that, we're hanging in there.
So, one of the questions we had earlier was, the concern was, could we get this in 2020's budget, the heater?
So.
And I'm
at this point,
assuming that we did
cannot.
not get invoiced.
We
So
didn't, so, and here's the deal, and finance directors get more worried about this than I do. We've got the money, it's just gonna come out of the 2021 budget. We didn't spend it in 2020.
Supplemental.
That's like the
budget
computer I
stuff.
ordered for
Yeah,
the
we're gonna,
courts.
we're planning a
It won't be here
supplemental
till
budget in
February.
July, because we'll also have coronavirus.
It's gonna be so screwed up with shipping dates and stuff.
Something we can handle.
We'll just have to
It's
fix it
not
when
a
it gets here.
crisis.
That's all there is to it.
You know,
Okay. Then what do you
everything
need
we've
from
got,
us?
we
right
can
now?
have.
Just to
So I'm not
approve
worried
that
about that.
estimate, and then Bobby will cut a check for half of that to give to Ches so he can start the purchase.
Unfortunately, we can't date that December. So that's on here, but we did nothing about electrical, so how are we gonna?
Well, I think Sheriff McDonald needs to talk to Ches about when's the best time to bring the electrician in to fix everything.
We'll go.
Make
from
sure
there.
everything talks to
Let me
each
find
other
out how much
properly.
we have to go back to the box.
You're backing us into a corner.
Well, but the
That
problem,
building's been like that for a long time.
It
the problem
happened
is
before his
CTOD,
time.
where this is at,
Uh,
this is the new part of the building,
I know.
the newest part of the building.
That distresses me.
You haven't seen the list yet that I've been putting up with.
These are the kinds of things that you find out when you come in to be a commissioner.
This feels like
In the past.
the old
We always did it
negotiating
that way.
gambit where we keep adding things to it, you know. If that's what you need, and is this the appropriate time in the agenda to make the motion? Then I would make a motion that we approve, somebody fill in the number for me here,
$58,790.
$58,790 for the purchase of heating system, in the jail CPOD. That gets it on order, and that we do a deposit of 50% right now.
I second that motion.
Yeah, motion and second to approve this expenditure for heater for CPOD. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Is that what you wanted? You could have gotten that in 5 minutes.
That would be fun, would it?
Well, I enjoyed talking to you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Finally, huh? Second back.
Okay, we have a presentation. Anybody else before we? No, I'm just curious. Come on, Jason. Come on up.
First of all, I'm Jason Tillman. I'm the president of the San Luis Valley Fair Board. So I would like to thank you guys for your support last year. I know that it was a tough year. Gene got to talk to me quite often. I talked to John a couple times. We thank you for your support. That being said, we're looking at the 2021 year, hoping that things change by fair time. But we're pushing forward with a normal agenda for our 2021 fair at this point. And hopefully we can keep that going. I believe we're on our 117th year. So
Wow.
it's a good program. We appreciate you guys' support of it. Couple things we need you guys to start looking at for us and for the 4-H program in general in the Valley is some more funding for the Fair Board to keep putting this on. Definitely this year, things are a little bit tighter with contributors. We have cut back on a lot of our expenditures to try to make it work. And the other side of that coin is that we all know that CSU extension agent has left us to go to another county. Blessing or not, I don't know, but we need more funding for that program too.
We have started working on that particularly, and I visited with Mary Ellen and Maxine last Thursday, I think it was Thursday, when we talked a little bit about, they're really excited about things, looking up.
Yeah.
Bill Noble's
I
retired.
think CSU's focusing on us somewhat.
Yeah, they came up with some funding with the CARES Act and stuff like that to get us funded to get those two positions hired for the next 2 years. But I know at the end of that 2 years, they're going to drop it back on.
Well, we have a plan tentatively out there that work on this. That's what the 2 years was for, was so both of us could work together on it and not be just a one-sided affair.
Right. I agree. And like I said, I'm just here to thank you guys. And I think that in the past few years, this is only my 5th year on the fair board. I think before me, I think some things have gotten dropped and not come and giving you guys updates on what's going on. And I would like to change that. I planned on changing it last year, and then with all the virus happening, it was a little bit tough to make things
But you
happen.
had that sale and there wasn't a single COVID case that came out of that, did it?
Thank God there wasn't a single COVID case that came out of it.
Well, but
we learned a lot in 2020. We actually have a parent in the room that I'm sure would voice an opinion on what we did in 2020 that made our fair a lot better than it has been in the past. We moved everything to the outdoor pavilion as far as shows and as far as sales. And I think really it showed good for us. We're going to keep that set up as we move forward because, it wasn't near as stuffed up during our sale. We were a little bit more spread out. People were able to enjoy themselves.
That was a good arrangement, you guys.
And to be honest with you, I've been involved with the fair since 2005, and in the years that I've been involved, we had our biggest sale.
In a COVID year.
In a COVID year. I think a lot of that due to the PPP stuff that came out, and a lot of that due to the CFAP stuff and the CFAP 2.0. Farmers were able to spend some money this year, and we're thankful for that because the kids, they benefited from it. This year may be a whole different deal. So I just keep saying that we just be thankful for what we had and let's move forward. And we can only move forward with your guys' support. So
when you talk more money for the fair board going forward, what are you talking? Do you have any idea what that number is?
Well, you guys have been really good to us, this year, especially in waiving the fees for the rental of the building, the purpose, or the McMillan building over there. Any extra funding we can get is a blessing.
Well, I know if I gave you $1 million, you could spend it, but is there?
Really,
he's talking personal.
Yeah. You guys do pretty good. You do really good. You get with the other counties on your annual county commissioner deal, and you guys support us. The funding has definitely dropped out of every county, not just one individual county. We're talking to all of them to see if we can get everybody's portion up just a little bit,
So Jason, I was going to ask this before. I don't remember if I heard this answer. If you sit down and look at the number of kids, has the number of kids dropped? Are we down in?
Not necessarily, no. Actually, our project numbers are up.
Well, that's what I kept hearing, but I just,
the number of kids has probably fluctuated. I think last year we fluctuated 3 kids, and we think some of that is due to other issues. They wanted to go play basketball instead of being tied to their animals all winter long, or they wanted to go to sports. So,
well, that's what I was wondering, because that happens quite a bit.
Yeah,
they hit that certain age, and then all of a sudden the basketball is more important, or the football.
Yeah, we see. My wife runs a club. She runs the Sand Dunes Drifters Club, and her numbers actually this year are up pretty drastically. So I think we're going to see that this year.
I'm really hoping Monte Vista's for FFA has taken place. They got it going now. Last I heard from them, there was like 53 members to start with. So that ought to have a.
Yeah, there's some good things coming in the school districts. When I went to school sergeant, we never had FFA. Now they've got a program. So we're definitely starting to see the swing back towards agriculture. A lot of these kids are graduating and wanting to come back and run the family farms instead of going and being involved in the CEO of some big corporation. We're also seeing that a lot of these kids that are graduating, getting married and having kids, now their kids are getting involved. So it's, I've got one girl that's involved, and I've got another one that is a year away. And then my sister-in-law, she's got 2. And so, all those kids that showed at one time have a couple kids that come back.
Yeah,
it's going to change, and we need, now more than ever, I think we need those kids to realize that agriculture is the way of living.
It's an awesome outlook for the future. The young, for so long they were leaving, and like you're saying, it's coming back. Because when I went to school in the good old days, we had all of those. We had the shop classes, FFA, 4-H, and all of that. but I just look at it as a total positive for the young.
Yep.
Thank you.
And we thank you guys. Like I said, last year was a tough year. Gene had a few phone calls for me and I got to talk to John a couple times. So
Yeah.
we made it through it
We
and
got it.
it was good. And there was
It's a
some
team.
people
The team thing.
waiting for some spikes in numbers so that they could say they told us so, and it never really happened. So we're
I
blessed
think,
for that.
I think there was a lot of prayer that went into that.
Yeah.
There was a
I
lot of
counted
prayer.
6 masks.
Yeah.
The entire-
I was afraid, you
counted
know,
my own.
we went online with the sale. I was afraid of that. It turned out to be good. We only sold 3 animals, but it, you know, shows that we can make that happen too. So I think we're gonna keep that option open. I was afraid that the day after our sale, we were gonna be on 9 News because there was a gentleman there that was videoing our crowds. So I was waiting for that call too, but
He probably just saved that video until see there was an outbreak.
Yeah.
They're not, that's not worth reporting.
yeah.
You want
so-
to report the good part of it.
Yeah, it was good. We had Valley Courier was there a few days and did some good things for us and turned out good. But as I said, we're moving forward to 2021 now, and I think it's going to be another good year. 2 dates that I'd like to put on your calendar to use the McMillan building, hopefully at your discretion with no cost. We got steer weigh-in, which is our initial weigh-in of all the steers.
That's next Saturday.
That's
isn't it?
coming up on
Or
February 6th.
6th, yeah.
It'll actually follow the ag conference deal this year.
Yeah.
And then May 8th, we'll do our sheep, goat, and pig tag in. They'll all happen from 8 to 11. But that's really right now before our dates are set for the county fair. We have them set from August 7th through August 14th. I'll be getting in the request for the use of the building again here directly for that. And anything that you guys can do to help make sure that the multi-purpose building is complete by this time would be great. Greatly appreciated from us. And if you guys ever have anything, need anything from me, I'm a phone call away. Try to answer my phone. If I don't, I'll get right back to you. So.
Now, can we take action on these first 2 dates or on the, in terms of waiving the fee?
Let me get it. Let me get
Get the calendar
first.
You can slap me if I, you know.
You're close enough, I can fight you.
Let's not do that. Might spread something.
To her.
COVID free.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Congratulations to you, Mr. Scott.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
To you as well,
I'm
Mr.
honored.
Nosker. Good luck to you guys.
Luck.
More
If
of
you
more.
don't have skill, you gotta rely on luck, right?
Yeah. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Oh, we're surviving.
February 6th and May the
May
8th are open.
February 6th. Oh, this is 2020.
That wasn't my fault. She got the calendar.
And then if you guys are all right with it, we'd like to come, you know, once every other month or once a month and just kind of keep you up to date on what we're doing. We are looking at purchasing some more of the gates and panel systems that we've got. In doing that, we're looking at selling a couple of the ones that we own due to the fact that they're a little bit heavy for the kids. We'd like to go with a little bit lighter systems. So Adams County has got some stuff that they're looking at selling. And so if we can either swap them or sell these that we don't like to them and buy the ones that they don't like, then
Well, you know, you can sell those heavy ones around here.
yeah.
People will buy.
So February 6th is open. So we're
Okay.
at the fair there.
Just
Mark it down.
And then what I,
May 8th.
May 8th.
Okay,
Mark it. Now, what do we have to do about waiving the fee to have that conversation?
just need a motion. I
Is that
think
good enough? We do that now? Thank you. I make a motion. Or Scott, you can do it if you want to.
So
You gotta get
moved.
some practice.
So moved.
Okay, so I'll second it then.
Got a motion, and a second to approve waiving the rent for February 6th and May 8th for the Fair Board. All those in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thanks for your time.
thank you. As far as coming to see us, I can't speak for the rest of the board, but sometimes we just need somebody to come in and give us good news, and talking about the kids is a good thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you guys were a blessing to us last year, and we hope to do it again.
just let them know when you want to get on the agenda when it's convenient.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ladies.
Jason.
Have a good day.
You have a
Take
good
care.
one.
Too.
I like hearing that kids are coming back to their
Oh, yeah,
rural
It's huge.
communities.
I would
It's
too.
so important.
Okay, so we're on to the revisions. So do you want to, somebody want to start that?
Annual appointments and authorizations.
Judy?
So there are some blanks in your draft resolutions, some of which you may know how to fill in now that you've selected your chair and vice chair. There are some other on your liaison appointment page that you probably need some more discussion around. Your cover memo talks about the things that I think are easy decisions today, or ready to be made decisions today, are setting your meeting dates, your posting resolution, your holiday schedule, and your treasurer's resolutions. Those are, I think, ready to go unless you have changes on those.
I gotta find where we are in the pile.
And then I do have a couple of things to point out when you talked about your committee assignments liaisons resolution.
Okay.
You just want to crank through them one at a time?
Are we looking at 2021-01?
Yes.
That resolution is over.
Yes. This is your appointments that reflect your current staff, and
Right.
the only blanks in that one, I believe, were your chair and vice chair, which can be filled in. I'll get you clean copies to sign with all those things filled in.
And we've got the commissioner, the chair and the vice chair already.
And this is a stack of this.
You find it? Or do you want, you can look at mine?
So it was in that, all
It
that
was in the
stuff you had,
stack, yeah. They got the resolutions in here by number.
I didn't print them out for signature since they weren't complete yet.
Oh,
So they're in your printed packet.
We needed printed out signature. It's got a signature spot right
They
there.
have blanks in it.
Sure. Oh, you mean that part of it, okay.
That part.
You don't have, well, take mine. I haven't memorized it, but
You'll also notice that these entire series of resolutions reflect a new sort of template format that Nancy and I have worked on together. And we asked, does every resolution really need all three signatures? And the legal answer is no, but it does need to say who made the motion, second, and how the vote was. So that will make things easier if you are appearing electronically by Zoom and not everybody's physically in the room. That'll make it easier to proceed with those things.
and you say how the vote was, each commissioner's vote on it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. But it doesn't require each commissioner's signature.
No, but the chair's gonna have a numb hand by the end of
That's right.
duty.
Okay.
well, that sign doesn't really matter. I can't read it anyway, so.
So for resolution 2021-01, with the addition of your chair and vice chair, I think that's ready to adopt unless you have other changes.
I have a question. County budget officer, how did we do that last year?
It's generally your administrator.
But how was that done last year, you know?
It was separate resolutions because you had, as you appointed me interim, you also included that into the interim. As you appointed Leslie as your administrator, you included that in that her resolution.
Okay, so this is just ratifying it again for the next year.
So,
Are you ready for this?
yes, sir.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2021-01, the annual reorganization, appointments and authorization for Rio Grande County as submitted.
Second,
Have a motion and a second for the approval of resolution 2021-01. All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
The committee assignment still has your final page there with a lot of highlighting and need for discussion.
You mean this yellow sheet?
Yeah, that all needs, talked about.
What happened to RETAC and the hazmat, Suzanne Bothell, that have lines drawn through them?
I took that from last year's resolution, so I'm not sure why it was drafted that way. My intent was for you to capture every entity that you needed to appoint a liaison to and let you work through that. I do have one that is not on your resolution. Jody let me know that she has been serving as your representative on the South Central Workforce Board. She would like to continue that, and we need to add that to your resolution if that's acceptable.
And that would be down under other appointments.
The other thing that came up at the staff level, Dixie let me know that the GIS board is designated as JJ as your liaison, and it sounds like Patrick has been the one attending that in practice.
Yeah, Patrick's had a proxy. They've been doing a proxy for, I think is what they called it originally.
She called it an alternate. It sounds like Patrick may be the one interested in attending those meetings.
Okay, so, we can make that change if we choose to.
Everything else is up to you.
And Gene, somebody quoted you as saying, I don't know who, that you're on 33 boards.
Boards or committees,
Yeah.
statewide.
So some of those would not
Yeah,
be
right.
included on this.
No, a lot of them was like CCI and MAP program, opioid program, both departments, and state lead board.
And I'm not picking here, I'm just, the Monte Vista Chamber Ag Committee, is that a county thing, or is that just, you're there and they put you there?
It was a county thing when it started, when I first got signed to it. I don't know if it needs to be, honestly.
I don't either, I just wondered if that was. Well, the ones that are really open are the ones that Suzanne is not going to be filling. Most of those had to do with the hazards, except for the options for long-term care. And I don't know about the Colorado Youth Detention Continuum. And on mine, the television board, I have yet to see anything on that. The Rio Grande County Prevention Partnership, we just got word that we were not funded for that for next year. The Communities of Care grant, it's a maybe. We were not given funds, but we're in the next tier down, which if there's extra money, we might get money. Third tier down is no money.
No.
And no county in the San Luis Valley got funded under Communities of Care this year, or under, Communities of Care grant. Which means unless other money comes in, we're going to see a reduction in the health department and that budget. Significant. That I just found that out this morning. So that prevention partnership, which I don't know how that ended up. I ended up with that on my list. I think somebody just typed it in there.
I pulled this from last year.
Right.
Maybe your bigger question is what agencies and boards do you want to have a liaison with? The ones that you may be there as an ex officio or in a capacity as your title of commissioner are different than the ones you just want to have a communication link with.
I've actually been approached on RETAC and hazmat, because I was on hazmat several years ago for 4 years. And they had asked but I left it to the powers to be if they want me there. I mean, as far as.
Those
the
powers or
board.
these powers?
These powers. So, and Gene, on the RETAC, remember when we met, they said that it takes a nomination because you're actually the 6th county representative, and that would have to go through the whole. And why are these crossed out? I wondered about
She
that.
just-
They were
That's just
crossed
what-
out on last year's.
Oh,
so
okay, okay.
I don't know why.
I would be up for the San Luis Valley hazmat team because I've done that before.
And RETAC is kind of,
RETAC is
That's
just
ambulance and
EMS
stuff,
on
yeah.
the same level, but then that's got to go through the 6 town.
That's one that has to go through the San Luis Valley Board of County Commissioners.
Yeah, it has through the Board of County Commissioners has got to nominate the person that.
do they
Is there-
nominate one from each county?
No, that I think,
I
there's,
think just at our meeting, we can just nominate Scott, for example.
When
if
we
wanted
show up
to,
at the
when we show
BOCC
up at the
meeting,
BOCC,
and we can nominate, so
nominate
we've
him.
got our guy in
if,
there.
if
Then
you're
ratify
okay
it.
with that.
So you would like to be on the hazmat then?
Yes, yes.
I see. I certainly have no objection to that.
Oh, no.
Well, and I was a firefighter for 26 years, so
Yeah,
I
but you
was
can't breathe
actually
now.
around when they formed it because we were on they had a parathion spill years ago.
Killed some people.
And yes, and that's when they started hazmat. And I was one of the firemen that was scheduled to go out there, but the chief said no way. And which was a good move on his part because there were several of us that would have been in the middle of it. But that's how far I go back on hazmat.
So as far as formalities on this, do we have to go through and do a blanket motion on something or?
If you come up with a slate that we can, you can adopt the slate as part of the resolution.
So you somebody keeping a list?
I'm writing stuff down.
Okay. One that I'm involved in that is, I think it's kind of important, but I'm not sure what my capacity is. I vote, is the San Luis Valley Housing Coalition. SLV Housing Coalition, but I am the only commissioner from the valley that's there. And I wouldn't mind if somebody else were to take that. It doesn't take a lot of time. But if somebody's got a sense of low income housing or what else is going on around here, that's a good one to be on because you can, just about everybody else on that board is either involved in a bank or a business, something like that here in the valley. And I've always been concerned about duplicating efforts on any of these programs where you've got this housing authority, that housing authority, and somebody else making houses. And one of the things I think is going to matter on this is it's going to involve dealing with the planning commission at some point. If they decide that they would like to put in a low-income housing development somewhere in the county. But that one always seems to conflict with something else that I've got going on.
And I can also, because that's an area of expertise of mine, I can support whatever commissioner you want to serve on that. If you need help.
I'm trying to do is pass this off to Scott.
Yeah, and
Get out the
as far as
2x4 and get
what
it
she
done.
did,
We need to work on this because I think we
Yeah.
could probably just.
yeah, but.
Right, make a motion.
No, I
Yeah,
don't
we're gonna
know.
do a
I haven't
blanket.
got
He's
any
gotta
expertise
agree
in
to
it.
There's
Otherwise, I'm
you
stuck.
usually go to the meeting to sit
You
there.
could
with
do a
some
motion
all
for
amounted on
every
that is if they decide
piece,
they're
but
gonna do
that
it.
sounds a little
housing
bit
development.
procedurally.
Then I bring
They
it
didn't
back
bring it
to
back to us,
the
but-
county.
But Leslie's really experienced in that, so she'd be working hand in hand. with
Okay,
you on
yeah,
that.
that'd be okay.
So
What's
Scott
that?
will-
Did he
Scott will
agree
take
to it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
He was
Have you
shaking
written
his
this
head. I
down
just,
on the slate
I'm writing it.
in pen?
I wrote in pen. Scott
Okay,
Deacon
there's
cannot
there's
give
no
out.
backing out now.
Well, on these other things up here, the ones that we don't have to go to in front of the Board of County Commissioners meeting at the SOB. Is there anything on here under Suzanne's we can assign right now?
I think we could assign any of them right now, couldn't we?
Should we assign Suzanne's list to Scott? And then we'll ratify whatever we need to at the Board of County Commissioners when we have that meeting?
Well,
As far
we
as
could, but
placing-
I don't know, like the options for long-term care, which is the youth detention. I don't know which one of these are part of the BOC, the SLB BOCC, like the Telephone Authority Board. I'm assuming that is, but I don't know.
E911.
Yeah. I know she was all worked up about that, but I don't know. And I was I'd been approached about the All Hazards Committee, which is part of that AHAC, Jeannie Borrego side of things, but.
I was approached on that too when I was running for, if I would be interested in it.
Okay. And then we've got, I don't know what the local emergency planning commissioner, what that was actually involving. You?
No, that's gonna take some digging. I don't know. That's some of
I
that
have no
stuff
idea.
Suzanne had on there and she just kind of handled it. I honestly don't know.
I would like to hold on, I mean, since I'm already there and I'm chairman of the Council of Governments right now, the 3 DRG things, because they're basically one function.
Yeah.
The television board is not a thing.
Is that the 911 Authority Board?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The
That's it.
3 that you're
That's what-
saying are one
yeah.
function of the San Luis Valley Council of
And it's
Governments
all held
Development
under the
Resources.
same.
Yeah.
Revolving.
I am.
Yeah, it's essentially,
Whatever you guys want to do.
it's not
change.
all the same people, but it's essentially the same people.
Give us everything.
Yeah.
Fill out what you do.
Okay,
Huh?
that'll work.
He seems like he's okay with it.
Yeah. And some of that is pretty controversial, potentially controversial now. That's the 60-page.
Oh,
58
yeah,
pages.
I still don't
58
understand that.
pages.
Oh, okay.
I'll have a chat with you about
Okay, okay. Yeah, it came 9 o'clock last night and I'm trying to get it on my phone and it wasn't.
that. Yeah,
Um,
that's the issue that I had given you.
So when you're all done, I'll read this back to you and make sure I have it right. But did you just decide on someone for all hazards?
Well, I'm still trying to dump some of mine.
Oh,
The San Luis Valley Great Outdoors, I've never attended a meeting. I've had nothing to do with it. They've never told me about meetings. And I don't know if that's,
are they active?
huh? They are active and they've got funding, but I don't know how their board's made up. I mean, truly, I've never had any information from them at all. And I don't know if it's required that we have a representative there.
I think that's your bigger question is what are you obligated to be affiliated with and what are you wanting to? Or by request of the agency? And I don't know those answers.
Well, how do we? Okay, I mean, it looks like a person could look like they filled up with stuff and find out that it's like the TV board.
If you think something is not needed or not active like the TV board, if you remove it from your list, you can always revisit your appointments later
Yeah,
on.
we need to remove the TV board. I asked to do that in my second year because I couldn't get the gentleman in Lahara that I talked to. There's nothing up here to do with the TV board anymore at all. It's done. Even the 2 towers that are around here are shut down.
They're shut down and everything's
anything.
coming off of San Antonio.
Yeah.
Canales is funding that one more than anything.
So let's take it off your list. If-
Okay.
If it revives itself later, this can be changed at any point.
And then San Luis Valley Great Outdoors.
I'm going to encourage you to make this motion initial appointments to committees. Call it your initial appointment, subject to change.
Yeah.
All right.
So do you want to take Great Outdoors off or?
And unless we can find that there's a commissioner requirement on that, but I am totally unaware of that. And, you know, I think they get involved in trails and stuff, but they're doing it like all over the valley. It's not bike trails.
Do they permit, is it like a promotion for the whole valley or
It's funding.
funding and?
They go out and do projects and get
Yeah.
money to do projects.
Huh.
And it's been focused on trails and
It
things like that.
has. I know a contact, Mick Daniel is the director of that organization, so I can find out more for you. If it's, worst case, if you don't assign somebody and that organization comes back and says, we really want your participation and here's what we expect you to do, then you can have that conversation.
Okay, so that's part of the initial. And then I'm on the, I'm the liaison, I guess, or commissioner's rep to the airport, which I'm fine with that. I'm missing the meeting today. So I've essentially got two.
How did you
They
manage
changed the
that?
airport meeting to next Tuesday.
They did?
Yeah.
I have not been advised of that.
Yeah, they didn't send out a general announcement. I had to ask
Yeah,
because I
see,
just saw the
That's
flurry
the
of
part, all of
emails.
us are on this.
Alvin,
Yeah.
mine, Earl, and
So-
Jason.
And that probably
Communications
ties to a
command
lot
and
of the
control,
other
C3.
two.
Yeah, they're
right?
pretty well, these are pretty well
I'll let
mandatory
Earl know.
for everybody to be on.
Okay.
Okay. And that's part of a, that speaks to an issue that we have in terms of these ad hoc, oh, we're gonna have a meeting, no, we're not. Kind of thing.
It's a separate,
Yeah.
but it's on there.
You're getting that all
You're
together.
gonna have,
Putting it in one
you're gonna
shot.
have 6 or 7
It'll be a
immediately
process, but we're.
that you're involved in, but like the museum meets once a month.
It'll evolve,
Oh,
not
there is,
explode.
that's one that meets once
There
every
you
3
go.
Well, you
months.
can't go in with a
That's
hammer
every
on
3
everything
months.
right away.
They're not like
Okay.
quarterly, some of them.
So I've essentially got two
And then
activities,
CCI is, it's whatever standing committees, I don't know.
as opposed to
I-
this
I
33.
know 1 or 2 with them, but I don't know, and that's kind of a volunteer thing, so I know, so you get down there, those just have to keep in mind.
Okay. I don't know why I couldn't find that, because I had it.
And then on Suzanne's list, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items on that. I'm willing to pick up a bit of that load, but I don't want to end up with a. And I'm down to 2.
So who's taking the San Luis Valley Council of Governments Development Resources Group revolving loan board? You?
That's me, but it's a one item. It's essentially one thing.
Get credit for 3.
Okay,
I'm not looking for credit.
we're gonna call you 4.
Don't call me 4 because that's all the same. It's just got different labels.
Okay.
It's one meeting.
A lot
Oh,
of
it is
these,
actually
like
one.
this
Yeah.
and this.
And I
They all.
I mean,
kinda
they
tie
break it
together.
up like we do Board of Health stuff.
Yeah,
and all,
the-
you
It's
know.
almost like a
That's
subcommittee.
The other thing is, that's
Kinda.
like John.
The Council of Governments has different representation.
Yeah.
DRG and this,
From
they all
different parts of
meet,
the county.
it's all the same,
DRG
group,
has
they either
different
meet
law-
the same
law
day
board, school
or
board.
the day apart.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, the Community Development Block Grant, have you seen any emails on that? CDBG?
I have not.
Okay, I got something from Ann Jones this weekend.
Okay.
We're the fiscal agent for that. And she's looking for signatures.
So that's something we need to talk about, subrecipient contracts and all that stuff, because that is a very important one to manage by federal regs. If you hold the money, you're responsible for what everybody
And
does.
we're holding the money. And I've got questions later for you about that, because in the past, when I asked the questions, I think I got answers that weren't fully thought out.
Yeah, and that's something you have to be really careful, because you are the fiscal agent and you are responsible for how that's spent. And if it's not spent properly, it comes back to you. So we'll have to look at how that's structured.
Okay, but anyhow, they're looking for signatures right now. And I don't think it's on disbursements necessarily, it might be on reimbursement, I don't know. That's a separate conversation. And that comes out of the DRG side of things. Scott's got 4. I've got 2. And some of these, Gene, like the ad committee, you don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know if I attended.
You're gonna be there anyhow,
Yeah,
right?
I attended because I'm.
And the library district, are we required to have a rep there?
Yes, and that
Okay.
is Metro Ave.
Speaking of library districts, you need to give this to her so she can put on the agenda.
Yep.
Did you give this to Leslie?
So while you're talking about this, can you just tell me, kind of reinforce who is gonna take this going forward?
Take what going forward?
The committees, because I'm writing them down, but I'm not clear.
I'm just gonna leave mine alone.
Okay, so they're all gonna be yours?
Yeah, we'll just leave them alone for time being, and then what we'll do is if John has time for something, or Scott finds he wants to get something else, then we can do it then. I don't want to do the whole shift on this and have to reassign it, because what was the word you used? We're supposed to classify this when we do this,
Initial appointments,
so.
Boards.
subject to change.
And I'd be willing to take most of Suzanne, what she's got, a lot of them tie together with, like I said, hazmat, 911, RETAC, all hazards. I'm good with all that because I've got some background in it. But the options for long-term care, I don't have a clue on that. And youth detention.
Yeah, we might have some,
Yeah.
dig some.
You're gonna need Jody to come in and talk about options for long-term care. And the youth detention continuum, I have no idea. And I don't know what the local emergency planning commissioner does.
I've heard that term before.
I've never,
I don't know what that
and
is.
Suzanne never gave us a brief on that. So,
Is that a position that's set by another board?
huh?
Like, would the all hazards committee?
That
have-
could be a sub of one of the other boards
Yeah,
like you're
'cause
talking.
I've not heard that term before.
I don't know.
Okay, so. Scott's taking the housing coalition.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what Gene said.
Well, John said, I want off. Scott was shaking his head. I'm not sure who he was shaking his head to, so I just wrote his name.
It's a good group of people. And like I said, you'll end up on the land use planning side potentially. Right now, they're in Rio Grande County, about the only thing they're doing is they have the High Valley Manor, which is senior living. They own that. And they're doing the housing study that they came to us for some support on, to see what the housing needs are throughout the valley, and that'll obviously hit us. I'm suggesting they put them all in Crestone. Let's watch. So there is that going on. I could stay on the prevention partnership, but again, I never got on that one. I never got any information until I got involved with public health.
I think that one was Suzanne's, wasn't it? She give that to you when you came on board? Seemed like dumped.
Right. Yeah, I think she did, because it's on the list here. So, because it was last year, she came in and gave me the folder like mid-year. I said, what's this? I'm not on the same board you are. I know what you're talking about. Okay. So the suggestion is that Scott picks up everything that Suzanne had on her list up here.
Yeah.
And the housing coalition. And this is initial, right? I'm trying to get this so we can make a motion.
Good luck.
Jane's gonna hang on to everything that he's got on the list. Leslie, you're looking concerned or confused.
No, I'm listening so I can get it down.
Okay, do you have questions before I make a motion? Here's what I'm asking.
I do want to tell you that Urged called me yesterday. Forrest called me and said that I'm supposed to be on the board of Urged. I did attend the meeting this morning. It looks like I'm not sure what the board does. It sounds more like a kind of a mutual.
Ronnie was on that board, but that was not, didn't we make that, didn't the commissioners make that decision? It hasn't always been the admin.
Yeah, I think we could choose on that at one time or another. Ronnie sat on it, but she sat on the bank board and everything, so just kind of tied all that stuff together through yours. But I don't know if it was,
You are welcome
get-
to take that position. It
Oh, oh.
sounds to me like, is it just a kind of a organization that shares what everybody's doing? Because it didn't seem
Basically.
like they were actually working on it.
They worked with
the
Judy
other one.
on the CBRF money.
Big-
But that was one of the few things
we have herbs,
that, where they've actually facilitated a
and
grant.
they usually meet-
They were very
What's
active in
that?
Del Norte Trails
Urban
thing
renewal.
a few years ago. But
Usually
basically,
the-
it was supposed to be Rio Grande County's baby.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's turned into Alamosa's baby,
And we usually meet at the.
kind of. They,
have breakfast.
I would say
Sure,
almost
so-
that they dominate the
Oh, well.
organization.
But since we're doing everything else, it's doing it.
And
now,
it's-
So that would be
It's
one
more,
more.
you know.
And they'll
It's,
just click up. and just click up and try to
They
do
call it the
Okay.
Upper Rio Grande Development Group because we weren't represented strongly in the economic development activities about DRG and everything said in Alamosa, just kind of the nature of things. And so they formed that up here, but it's kind of dominated by, or I would say, is it dominated? I don't know if it is, but it's getting close
Getting close, yeah.
by Alamosa interest. We pay $15,000 a year to the effort. Bonnie and Marty Asplin run it,
What does the money go to?
support your efforts. And they kind of, and in this case for the CBRF, that actually worked, but somebody had to find the job for them. Big gap.
Maybe that's a good reason to have somebody representing the county on the board, though.
Well, I think we should have somebody representing the county on the board. The question is it a commissioner or is it the administrator?
That's for you to answer.
And then it sounds like he called and said you because, and I don't know the bylaws, that they say that the Rio Grande County Administrator is going to be on the board.
I have no idea.
I was trying to think of who was on there after Ronnie.
I wouldn't say so
Representative
because
Tricia
I
on there,
think
wasn't
he-
she? No.
Forrest and I were the only manager types on there. Administrator types. There wasn't anybody else.
Owen Forrest
Yeah,
was the president this last, or whatever,
Yeah, he still
chairman.
is.
Yeah.
I didn't see anybody else that had any other community that had
Mayor.
some
or-
AD people.
Dan Hicks used to be on there, but I don't know if he was ever, he may have just been a member. I don't know if he was on the board or not. He's a city manager, town manager, Suffolk. But I don't remember if he was on the board or not.
I don't remember if I saw it.
If this is an initial and we have some questions about some of these positions, can we
You can
set
read.
those aside? and
Yes, you can.
Answer the questions later.
And by setting them aside, some of your questions may be answered if there's no request for you to participate.
Show up
Right,
like the TV board.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have worked on that fairly hard. I've even gone as far as talk to PBS in Denver to find out about the radio tower out here at Barker or Burkhart's, because see if there's any use. They're not using it even for what they used to.
So the ones that are kind of left open are, or need to be reappointed, is Jody as Action Agency, Health and Human Services, Colorado Counties, Inc. Dixie's the San Luis Valley Habitat Conservation Plan. Is that what we want to do? Or should we leave off the list until we get an answer? Pat's on the Rio Grande Canal. Dixie GIS, Pat Sullivan on GIS, and Dixie on the Landfill Authority.
Do you want Dixie on the GIS too, or do you want to replace Dixie with Patrick?
Well, JJ doesn't show up.
Oh,
That's what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah, JJ, I don't know.
I
if she-
see. I
Yeah,
thought
we'll
it was
replace
Dixie
JJ with
replaced.
Patrick. Patrick's
Okay.
usually sitting that spot anyway, so.
I see. I misunderstood.
And did you add the South Central Workforce Board, which was not on your last. year's-
Jody, I've got it written
Jody.
down here,
Okay.
and that would be under services, and I don't know why they call the four we just named under administrator, do you?
I don't. I think it would help us all to understand more about the expectations from these entities of what they're wanting from us. Are they wanting a commissioner because they want an elected official? Are they wanting just a communication liaison? So as we go through the year, we can run those better for next time around.
Well, I think we need to get better on our commissioner meetings. We get the commissioners' updates. We need to actually spend some time on that update. If you've been to a meeting, report what it is. Because John and I sat here and we didn't know anything about what was going on, what Suzanne was doing, or vice versa, you know, a lot of times. So we just need to make, and John always called for it. It was always on there. I'm not saying that. We just need to get better as a group to report.
Or you can put railroad on there and I'll talk for an hour and a half.
I'm not sure why that says administrator. I don't know what that means because, yeah.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think that's a term that has no meaning here
Well,
in this context.
So you're gonna take it out?
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
You could just call it other appointments for crying out loud,
Yeah,
that whole
that's-
block.
Yeah,
I
the whole thing
think
is
so.
other.
Do away with services and
Yeah,
administration.
they're just other appointments.
Okay, well, cool. Then I'm gonna make a motion, if it's appropriate, that as we have discussed, that Scott will take over those committees upon which Suzanne Bothell previously represented. Rio Grande County, is there an exception to that?
Plus the housing coalition.
I'll get down to that in a minute. I wanted to make sure that we got that list.
What was there on? Wasn't this, you talked about,
That would just take it,
Jody,
the youth.
but
the
they
youth
need to,
detention.
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's good.
You'll take them all?
Yeah.
All right. And also the San Luis Valley Housing Coalition.
Right.
Okay. That Gene retain the representation as he has in the past, that list, that John will be the liaison to Rominger and the commissioner rep to the San Luis Valley Council of Governments Development Resource Board and Revolving Loan Fund. The Rio Grande Prevention Partner to be determined. How's that? TBD? Because we don't even know what it is. Or you can point me to it now and then we'll find out there's a slot. I just don't want to go to the meetings. And that all the commissioners retain the representation on those boards. The other appointments are as discussed, with Patrick being the San Luis Valley GIS Authority in lieu of JJ, and that Jody be on the South Central Workforce Board. Does that cover it? That's my motion.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the initial look for committee assignments. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There we go.
One done.
Sorry. Now you got
Sorta.
another one.
Sort of done.
Meeting dates, right? You've turned that one over. 2021.
When I print your packets, would you like them single-sided? Is that part of the confusion?
Well, it'll be okay.
We're not
Just
used
get
to
used
it,
to,
though.
yeah, get used to say that
Just let me
tree.
know.
We could also put them in a note book. It's kind of easier to handle.
It's just being adaptable, huh?
Your next resolution sets your meeting dates, and that ought to be a much simpler action after your last one. The only month that I proposed a shift was November. Generally, your meetings are the last Wednesday and 2 weeks prior. In November, those fall on days right before holidays, Veterans Day and Thanksgiving. So I've shifted them to Tuesday, just because that's what you had done this past year. Your discussion, what you would like to do with that.
I'd like to entertain a motion if somebody wants to do it.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Motion and second to approve resolution 2021-03, setting the meeting dates. All those in favor?
Aye. Now I can put this in my calendar in ink, right?
You can.
Okay.
It will also be updated on your Google calendar.
And we'll give this, we can give a list of this to Bobby and she can highlight that calendar there for us, and yeah,
Sure.
like we always do.
Yeah.
Right. Actually, I did have a question on this, but I don't, we've already done the vote, I know. I know that we have more budget meetings than this.
You do, but you don't know the dates of those yet.
Okay.
It's easier to set those kinds of workshops when you're upon it.
Okay.
So we can do that then. Because they're usually workshops.
The reason that special meeting is on there is because your adoption date will fall, your required adoption date, you can't meet with your first meeting in November and December.
Gotcha.
So we know that already.
All the posting locations of the board's public meetings.
I think you've already talked about this quite a bit at your last meeting. Just to point out also, it does designate your newspaper of record. And I changed the title to reflect that also.
I did have a question on this. The treasurer, when they post like the tax sale stuff and all, they do it downstairs. Are they required, and they also publish it in the paper.
That's not what this is talking about.
Their posting location can be different than ours. Even though we do designate the
They fall
publication
under a
record.
different statute for that process.
Okay. You sure?
Yep, they have court rules for it too.
Oh, good for me then. I just want to make sure. So. And CRS 24640222C2A requires transition from physical hard copy to electronic posting to the extent practical. We talked about that. That's part of what we talked about.
It won't change how we've been operating because we've been doing that anyway. It just makes this resolution comply with the law.
Okay, but we're still going to allow, or we're still going to provide for physical posting.
Yes, and that's stated in your resolution.
And then what about notices and other information required to be published in the paper? Is that changed under the statute?
No. Anything that requires a legal notice still requires a legal notice in the paper.
Okay.
And that's the reason you're designating your newspaper of record too.
Well, I don't like them if they don't print better articles about it.
I learned all kinds of new stuff about myself that I never knew before when I read the article about me. It was interesting.
Just kidding. Motion, are you ready for that?
Yes, we'll take a motion for 2021-04.
Oh, Scott, you want to do that?
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
So moved.
I'll second it.
Yeah, motion second to approve resolution 2021-04, the designation of the posting location. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is resolution 2021-05, setting holiday schedule. And I've looked this over pretty good. This looks really good. The other thing we need to keep in mind is the 2 dates that Patrick had talked about for his people. And he just monitors it. We never assign anything on there.
But,
He takes Martin Luther King's Day and President's Day. Instead of taking them off because it's in the middle of winter, he trades them because of snow plowing and stuff. He trades them for a date later on. He lets the guys kind of.
I'm only concerned about running into labor law. I don't know. What do you think, Nancy?
I don't think there's an issue.
Okay, fine.
and if we want to state
Because
that. in
their
this
trade of holiday
resolution,
would fall under emergency services.
Yeah,
What about the police department? Sure.
They don't get holidays.
I think if we state that, then we're gonna tie ourselves where we have to explain it. I think,
That's my thought.
Yeah.
I think that's fine to handle as an administrative policy
Yeah.
issue. rather
and
than
he
just-
always lets us know, just like he did, they always lets you know ahead of time. These are the 2 days, and we'll just use them somewhere where they have time. You know,
And that's fine. We'll handle that.
So we can handle that administratively and it doesn't have to be part of the resolution. And they don't have Native American Day on here,
You want?
which is an official Colorado holiday. Because they
Yeah.
did away with Columbus Day.
What day is it?
It's Columbus Day, only now it's Native American in Colorado. It's not on here.
From what I understood, you had traded that day for the day after Thanksgiving. If you want to add it back in, I'm sure employees will be more than happy to take another day off.
Yeah, I mean, we had that long discussion before, and the sense was that gives them a 4-day weekend.
The day after Thanksgiving is usually a non-productive day to be open.
So if we're gonna pay them not to work, we might as well have them stay home.
Most people try to take vacation anyway, and then you end up with a short staff and.
Yeah. Everybody's tryptophaned out.
Right, so it makes a lot of sense to take that as a holiday.
And almost every government I know takes the day after. That one I was surprised and delighted to hear about was Christmas Eve. I have always worked Christmas Eve, but
Yeah, I did too.
I don't see a Zoom holiday on here. Are we not going to?
And they're
love a
getting,
Zoom holiday.
and they're observing Christmas Day, observing on the 24th.
So the holidays that fall on Saturday, I move the day off to Friday, and those that fall on Sunday, I move to Monday.
Makes sense. That's appropriate.
Call for a motion?
I move that we approve resolution 2021-05, setting the 2021 holiday schedule for Rio Grande County.
Second.
A motion second to approve 2021-05, setting holiday schedule. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 2021-06, authorizing treasury deposits and investments.
The same as last year, with the exception of removing individual persons' names. It's the company we're doing business with. not-
Okay, that's the one that was on. I was trying to remember which one we talked about. Okay.
And this has been reviewed by Sherry. It's still her practice.
She put a spot of blood on here anywhere? Okay.
So that sounds like fairly routine.
Yeah.
You want me to do it?
Sure.
Make a motion, we move on resolution number 2021-06 for depositing funds in banks.
I'll second that.
Have a motion second to approve resolution 2021-06, resolution for treasury deposits, investments. All those in favor?
Aye. Now we're gonna get into conversation. Cost allocation services and selecting a vendor. And I'm gonna confess that I didn't read all the mouse print on the OMB stuff. That was highlighted that you got in your hand.
That's just if you're interested.
I'm interested, but my eyes weren't up to it, so. But the question I would have on that, originally this was brought before us by Jody because social services, and somehow she became aware that they were gonna be required to comply with this particular program, a program like this.
Yeah, I read that legislation a little bit differently than her. I think what they're saying is you have to have a federal state compliant plan. It's very difficult for small governments and large governments too, because I actually did a nationwide study on who has these from my former employer, to do their own, because the people that are in this business, it's kind of an obscure expertise. They can find things to benefit you that sometimes you can't see if you're within the organization. So what indirect costs are your central services costs. They're not direct costs of the grant, but you're doing payroll for the staff when they're working grant hours, you're running the building, you're doing all this. You have other expenses, you have my expenses to oversee certain departments, whatever. And that's what the central service costs are. And then you can claim whatever percentage, they will figure out what percentage affects that particular department. You can claim that in addition to the federal grant money that you have to get reimbursed for that.
In addition,
It depends on the grant. Sometimes it's part of it, but what you have to do and what I'm going to have to do that everybody used to do it, because this was also part of my task with my former employer, is that when you apply for the money and also when for what I'm going to call formula funds that you get every year at a certain amount, you have to let them know you're going to claim that you now have an indirect cost plan that's compliant and has been accepted by the state and the federal government, and that you're going to claim those and add it to your budget. You have to do that at the beginning. And also we can negotiate on things that are already going and saying we've got a compliant plan, but it's a cost recovery mechanism for your true costs of having federal grants.
right. And I don't know, Scott, you've probably heard us talk about it on some of the meetings, but we're undergoing an audit right now in public health.
Mhm,
And that is ongoing
mhm.
still. We're still submitting requests. And a large portion of the audit concern has to do with how we were handling indirect.
Mhm.
Okay. And our concern was indirect was automatically added, which is fine to some of the grants, like the Healthcare Coalition and others.
Mhm.
But they were diverted into reserves at the Public Health Department.
Yeah, they should come back to the
Must
county.
come back.
Mhm.
And they weren't. And we were not invoicing for it. There was no oversight up here to make sure that we were recapturing or recovering those costs. But it enabled an independent person or the public health director to inappropriately direct those invoice for them, those funds, and then park them in an area that was not part of the program.
So we talked about this quite a bit in my interviews, and I'll tell you what we need to write policies up for grants management. So what I'm going to recommend to you going forward is that we have a very simple form that any department, including public health, the elected officials, they fill in declaring their intention to get a grant or that they've received notification they're getting formula funds, which often happens with DSS and public health. And that we approve that. And that way we can see if they're going to charge indirect or if they have done that properly at that point. And also that we have application approval before they're submitted. And then we can set that up through our finance department. And we've been talking about trying to get there's a time management system for employees where they actually record their time that they're spent on that grant. And that's part of how indirect is charged. So we can keep track of that, but we need to have a consistent grants management policy. So we're all working together on making sure that those are correct. Just to let you know, one of the reasons the department that I worked for previously was formed because the departments were keeping their indirect, which is not okay.
No, it's totally outside.
Yeah,
the
so
bounds.
those kinds of things have happened. There's a new laws governing federal grants, 2 CFR 200. We just need to work toward becoming compliant and getting a consistent policy.
Two things. One is, as I understand, formula grants are the ones that are just basically automatic, like social services, certain functions down there. They don't have to apply for the grant. they just are eligible for it by the very fact, on some sort of per capita
There
basis
is
or
a
something.
contract that you have to sign, and
But
that's
not an
where you have to
application.
catch it.
It would have to be a contract, but not necessarily applying for. These are automatically going to different departments.
What happens usually is they'll get a letter and they'll say, because those what we call formula amounts are set by Congress.
Mhm.
So you'll get a letter, or they get a letter, which you probably need to see, that says, we estimate that this year you're gonna get so much money.
Mhm.
And then when you get the contract, it's actually what you get, which is not always the same because Congress changes the amounts.
Right.
So at that point, we really need to monitor, what the budget is for that grant. And I know, and I'll have to tell you that other governments have had the same problem, that you've also had the problem that the grant has to be spent on the grant contract,
Right.
not on other things. It's not general fund that gets to be spent anywhere. So we just need to get a tighter handle on that. And the other big concern I have is that we're the fiscal agent for a lot of subrecipients, and I don't know how we've been monitoring them. We need to have contracts with them, and somebody needs to monthly be monitoring our subrecipients.
Our subrecipients would be like the all hazards, the HCC,
Anybody you're giving money to.
and in this case, DRG, Community Development Block Grant, and there's one other one out there, I believe. What's her name? I can't think of her name. She works for us. I've never seen her in here. She's a contractor.
On the SCP, Jackie Stevens.
It's but yeah, there's one out there. And I just saw something on the payables to one of our contractors. Can't remember her name. It's not somebody you see around here. It was in public health. A Carrie, a Kaylee, or something like that. Not any of our people down there. But anyhow, I don't want to beat this to death, and it's a little bit off to the side, but it's going to have to be addressed. We were told during these transitions of public health director that $70,000 of indirect had been banked, inappropriately assigned to reserves. Okay.
Banked. What does
Banked.
that mean?
They got it, they didn't distribute it. So we're just sitting down there in a slush fund.
Well, it needs to come back to the county.
We know what needs to do, but that's what had happened. That was part of our problem.
Uh-huh.
Okay. The other was there were stipend issues, which we got ahead of, where they were just inappropriately issuing stipends. Okay, that was the Healthcare Coalition. The other was they wrote checks in excess of the authorized line item on a grant to two entities here in the valley. And I've run this by you before. They was each authorized $1,000 in the grant. They were given $5,000 each. So there was an $8,000 discrepancy. We were made aware of it. We have never heard on any of those how they were resolved.
And these are budget issues that you should be intimately involved with.
We're
So
trying
we
to
need
be.
clean
So
that
we're
up.
coming to you now and saying, help us out.
And I talked to Debbie extensively about this. When we get a permanent finance person on, we will be closely scrutinizing that and asking questions and requiring reports. We should also be getting quarterly reports from them.
But right now that's under audit, and
Right.
we need to be aware of what's happening with that. And are we going to be on the hook for the $8,000 over expenditure on the community care grant? Are we going to be on the hook for something else?
Well, the over expenditure, they're not going to pay for. You have to pay for that.
It's already been done.
Yeah, I know. You mean, did you claim more and they?
I didn't
paid it?
claim anything. I'm just saying that's what
No,
happened.
but what doesn't make any sense to me is what you do, most of those are reimbursables, and you submit your reimbursement. They're not going to reimburse you for more than what your
We
grant
need to
was.
find out if they did or did not, and if they did not, did we make an unauthorized diversion of some other grant to cover that check?
That I don't know.
But the check was
The
written up.
audit should find that out.
But the check was written up here.
Yeah.
But we need to know that. and Dr. Vancouver needs to know that because he's inheriting this mess.
And you have hired an auditor, or is this a state audit?
This is a state audit,
Well, they should be able to tell us that.
should. They're still in the middle of it.
Yeah, I mean, we can do our own audit to find out what happened. Do you have a single audit that you get every year on your federal
Yes.
grants?
But not on the federal grants per se. We have a single audit for the county.
Well, that's usually what a single audit is. It's,
But I can tell you that no, they have not been looking at that or not looking closely.
and do you hire, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar how Colorado handles this. Do you hire the firm that does the single
Yes.
audit? Well, if they're not telling you that information, we probably need to make sure that
I'll let you weigh in on, you can take,
We have
you
a
can take the point
contract
on that one.
it's a little deeper than what we've got.
Eugene, you're.
Well,
I'm
we
sorry.
just need to get some answers. That's all we've been asking for. We'd just like to know if it was, or if it wasn't, if it was handled, if it wasn't, if there was a check cut, reimbursed.
We've been asking since last June. And I guess what we're saying is we want some answers on it, on what happened. Not who, did we get reimbursed? If it was reimbursed out of what grant?
Mhm.
Okay. Was the check actually written? We're hearing this stuff, but we're not seeing the evidence.
If
Or at
you-
least as a board, we're not. I've seen some of the evidence.
So you called in and asked for a state audit, right?
We did.
Okay, they should be able to uncover that for you. If they
But
don't.
we should know internally. It has to do with who we hire,
Mhm,
who we trust.
mhm.
Okay, if we have to wait for an audit report,
The problem is you've had such a staff turnover that, I mean, we would all have to, we're all new to this.
there's two items down there that are discoverable. One was, where'd the indirect go? And the issue to us is, are we outside the window to file for reimbursement on those indirects now?
Don't we manage those funds here out of this office? I mean,
Part of the personnel turnover centered around us not getting information. And so when I asked the question
who gets bank statements?
up here,
So we get all the bank statements. There's no bank statements held by a department that. we
they don't have
receive.
their own checking account.
Well, that's something that we should be able to find.
Okay, what I'm trying to tell you is this. I asked the question,
Mhm.
shouldn't the final checkpoint on all of this be right here in this office?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I got the runaround from our staff.
Well, that's something that I can, over time, fix.
Okay, but
Because-
right now I'm still asking the question, what happened to the $70,000? And did we, in the last 30 days, miss our window to reclaim it?
But if it's in a bank account somewhere, we have the ability to, I mean, unless it's not in a bank account.
Let's assume it's in the bank account, but it was never appropriately invoiced for reimbursement. And we, in that fiscal year, did not invoice public health for our indirect involvement. That central stuff that you're referring to. And I was asking about that last fall because I was afraid that what might happen is we might have to de-obligate that money because it was never properly invoiced.
Yeah, the whole invoice thing does not make any sense to me. The indirect just comes here. You don't have to invoice it. It belongs to the county.
Whatever, the money didn't get to us.
So
Whoever's making the mistake, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
But can we recover
I
it?
think what John's after on this is that we need somebody to dig in this and just get the bottom, get the answers internally as much as we can. We know that the audit's going to discover it, but we'd kind of like to know ahead of time whether or not we think the audit will.
We don't even
discover it.
know for sure what they're
Right.
looking at.
So, but
There's
Yeah.
no oversight on the audit. All I'm hearing is from, I walk downstairs and say, are they requesting more paperwork? Yes.
I mean, I can ask Debbie what she thinks about what it would entail. I mean, so let me ask you this. Public health has a separate bank account?
No. All of it's watched up here. All the checks are written up here.
Okay,
So the money is sitting in a fund somewhere.
So we have to trace the deposit, but the deposit isn't likely to show that it's from a grant.
This takes you to another problem, because the deposit is made by the treasurer. And you may or may not know exactly what that deposit is for.
So all this has to be linked. We have to start tracking our grants, so all this accounting is linked.
Exactly.
And we can do that with Tyler, and they have not been doing that. It's gonna take a while, but the investigation, I'm trying to figure out. I mean, with all you're telling me, it's gonna take some time to figure out, so I've gotta.
I don't think it would be that hard if Dr. Van Kula can retrieve the spreadsheets that the public health directors were using to see how they allocated the money. And then you can very easily go see when they requested any reimbursements on these two grants. And if they had, for instance, on the community care grant, they do a reimbursement request for the indirect specifically each month. I happen to know that. Okay, because I'd signed some of them.
Right, it's part of your monthly billing.
But I don't know about the healthcare coalition.
That's a subrecipient that doesn't have a nonprofit or governmental status, which is a whole nother issue that we need to talk about.
But, and I'm not sure the healthcare coalition is where the money was siphoned off, if you will, the indirect funds.
Mhm.
So what we have to do is look at the 10 grants or so that they had down there and see what was authorized in the grant for indirect, how we're supposed to go about reimbursing it. Debbie told us sometimes they just give you the money. You say, okay, you get 10%, here's a check, in the story. Okay.
It would be, so when you get the reimbursement check, it's included in there. What you need to look at is the billing.
Exactly. Okay, and that's not that
So
difficult.
hopefully it's in public health in their records. They should be keeping their quarterly reports.
Remember
and their
what I
reports.
told you, though, there's been a
I know,
hard
but
time.
see, here's my frustration.
I would ask them, is what
You're
I'm saying.
telling me about a big problem.
Uh-huh.
We haven't been putting in the structure to manage that. So the forensic work to try and figure out what went on is going to take time. It's not going to be simple because you haven't had the accounting mechanism to track it. And so it's a big issue,
But
which is why I need to
it would
talk to
be-
Debbie about how to approach it.
We talked to Debbie, we need to talk downstairs because they're the ones with the numbers.
I can do that, and that's something that we need to talk about is my role with public health, but you know, in a different context, but I can't answer you yet about how we might go about doing that till I have more information. That's the quick and dirty way of saying it. I hear what you're saying. I have major concerns, as you have had, about grant management here in the county, the federal money, which is highly regulated. We have plans to address things going forward, but to try and address things going backward, and that we haven't had those financial, like, I'll just tell you, my employer, the treasurer, is connected in. When the deposit comes through the treasurer, it goes into the financial system. It's all tracked countywide, where that grant money flows. You don't have that system set up.
Well, and there's probably some internal reasons or political reasons for that.
Well, you can't do it that way anymore because there are new federal regulations. You've got to.
Yeah, but
gotta do it right.
the feds will just come down and hammer this board, where we may have somebody else that needs to be brought into compliance that we don't have any control over.
Oh, and that is.
But my question right now is, are we on the hook for the 70 grand if in fact it existed? We were told in June, July that it did.
So
And Tony took over as public health director, and we found out by accident that Tony had written checks in excess of the grant amount to two entities, one of which she worked for. Okay, and so we never got resolution on that. What I found out when I was acting as head of public health is that Tony had instructed somebody downstairs to take that money and cover it out of another grant, period. Now,
So
and
I
that's,
hear-
we're
I
within
hear
a
what you're
6-month
saying.
window or 7-month window, so we should be able to track that.
I hear what you're saying, and this is the one scenario that I can think of that would affect you. You can't get reimbursed for more than what the grant was. The federal government is not going to cover you for $8,000 extra. You contracted for a certain amount, that's what you get.
Okay, so.
But what might have happened is that money that was written to other entities or wherever it went came out of the indirect that should have gone to the general fund.
But what I was told in that particular case, in this specific instance, where the overpayments or excessive payments, was that the instructions were take it out of another grant.
And that is.
And it might have
that's a
been one of these
violation.
grants that fell into that fuzzy logic stuff because of COVID. I don't know.
And I'm just going to tell you that unfortunately, I have heard of that happening with my former employer, and it's a much bigger county than this. But that has to stop like right now, because that is the money that you're on the hook for. If they've spent, and that's what this audit will show you, if they've spent federal funds for a grant they were under contract for a certain category or program on some other category or program that's not under that grant, then yeah, we are on the hook for it.
I understand all that, but I would rather find it ourselves than have to wait for the state to find it and ding us. There's gonna be enough they find without that we.
I'm totally hearing you that you would like us to do some reconnaissance work. What I don't know how to answer is I need to talk with Debbie and maybe the treasurer on what it's going to take to try and get that information, because I don't understand how you've been accounting for grants. And so I don't have the information now to tell you, okay, well, go do that, because it could take, we may have to hire somebody to do that depending on how complicated it is.
Right now, a phone call will give you a lot of information downstairs, because the principals that were following the instructions of the directors are still down there.
So, yeah, so we'll have to talk about that under what my role is, which we're going to be working on later. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I have to think it through about how we're going to do this. And the other situation is that you can have that discussion directly with them, because you are the Board of Health.
We can, but what we don't have, we have no visibility into how the money actually flows. We know how it's supposed to, money in, money out. Every month we sign off, or every meeting we sign off on accounts payable, many of which are grants. The funds are being expended out
Which
of the
should be
grant.
probably on your invoices when it comes from the federal government.
But we're signing off on them. And then we never know that we ever got reimbursed.
So
And
that
the
we
complaint,
can handle through going forward,
right,
but I don't know, going backwards, we're just gonna have to figure out what people did.
right.
and
But I think,
try and
I do
reconcile.
believe, and we have a brand new public health director who is just now getting, and he's having to deal with a lot of other
And
issues.
he's not familiar with indirect costs. He just told me flat out, this is all new for him. So
Perhaps.
he's very communicative, and we'll be talking about
Right.
that stuff.
But I was asking about the indirect, and I can't recall exactly how the conversation. My impression is he said, you can't do that. So he knew something about it, I believe, but it doesn't matter. But there were people downstairs that were being approached by their bosses saying, do this. Okay, and they were uncomfortable with it, raise the flag, but there was no follow-up.
And you've been taking steps to rectify that, and it may take, it's not something, it's a big shift if that was the culture. And it's not gonna be something we can do overnight, but we're working on it. And I've talked about it with Debbie. I mean, there's other things countywide that people have been putting charges in line items. When they think that they've hit the top of the line item, they put it in another line item. That's a nightmare for budget planning. You don't know what they're really spending. So we've got to clear up all this stuff, and
I
we will.
understand that. My question still is,
It's
Are we
kinda
gonna be
similar.
on the hook for $70,000 and are we gonna be on the hook for 8,000? Because we didn't correct it in last fiscal year.
So on the hook, I don't know what you mean. They're gonna point that out in an audit and they're gonna suggest that money, or they're gonna require that money be transferred into the general fund if it's in a bank somewhere. If it's been paid out as over, for a different reason than indirect, I don't know how to handle that. I have not encountered that situation before. I can find out, but I will tell you that usually they will work with you when they know that you've already made major steps to clean up a problem.
So on the 70,000 that was accumulated probably over a period of years, if that number is even correct, that number came from the person who was handling the grants for the public health department at that time. My question again is, and the documents will be downstairs. When they requested that reimbursement for indirect, my lack of clarity is, I understand they just 10%.
So 10% is appropriate because there's a clause called de minimis that you can charge 10%.
So, but when they did that, the presumption is that you've actually spent it for what you're requesting reimbursement for.
The presumption is that it goes back into the general fund to reimburse the county for central services.
Right.
Which you don't have to account for, other than through this report we're talking about.
Okay, so if we're not at risk of having to reimburse that to the state,
No,
okay,
they would just want you to transfer it to where it's supposed to.
then can we do out of fiscal year transfer?
I mean, I don't know the answer. We have to talk to Debbie about all this.
Okay, to the general fund.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't. There's a mechanism to do all this stuff, so we would just have to. I'm not as concerned about the mechanisms to make things right and clear things up as I am about having money spent that shouldn't have been spent on things that it shouldn't have been spent for. That you're on the hook for.
Well, and we don't know for sure because we're guessing on the indirect in terms of where the money actually came from. All we know is the person who was handling the books said that there's 70,000 sitting down there in indirect.
So it just needs to go to the
It just
general
needs to be
fund.
transferred.
It just needs to be
Okay,
transferred. It's not a
But
big
it wasn't sure, they had their own set of books.
right.
And it's not tied into a state system, those computers. So they had their own set of spreadsheets, which were subsequently removed from the computers and only found by accident through Carbonite.
So you have implemented a solution for that, which is that you have Tyler. I talked to Jody the other day. She's interested in converting to Tyler, and you need to make public health convert to Tyler. So you're all in the same financial system, and the finance director can pull up reports on everything because you have budget authority over all these departments, regardless if they're elected, regardless if you sit as a different board, you have budget authority. We just need to make sure that our accounting system is picking up all this so our finance director can see it. Otherwise, you have got people keeping books that you don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
Well, that we got to fix.
Welcome to our world, Scott. But one of the reasons I'm pushing now is we've got, I think, people on board that understand how to deal with this. But these questions have been asked for at least 2 years.
Yeah, the issue that I'm having that I can't answer is I am not sure the amount of time it will take to unravel that. And so I'm gonna have to do a little digging and come back with you with a plan. It depends on how much record we can trace. I don't know. The bank deposit isn't going to show that it's indirect or not indirect. So that's going to be the issue.
Yeah, you'll get a check that may have multiple line items covered based on the reimbursement request. Okay, now in theory, it should match the reimbursement request.
And at that point, then we need to make sure that money, the indirect, when it comes back through the treasurer, goes directly into the general fund.
Mhm.
It never, ever goes to public
But
health.
the
It goes into
communication,
the general
the
fund.
communication between treasurer, requesting entity
Mhm.
and up here, because the account numbers don't even match.
We have to tie those accounting systems together so they talk to each other. Because if the finance director can't see the financial reports, you have no control, you don't have internal
I know.
controls. And
Exactly.
then we had this discussion too, is that we've got to implement internal controls. But I don't want to sugarcoat this. I can't do this next week. This is months of trying to get everything
Well,
straightened
the
out.
key part of this whole thing is we just need to get started.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we
she's
need,
working on the process and the policy,
right.
and that's not gonna take months.
Mm-hmm.
But the forensic piece of it may take months.
Mhm. Especially because it sounds like you didn't have, there's no, we're gonna have to find pieces here and pieces here and pieces here and look at the bank statements and all that kind of stuff.
Well, but the important thing is we won't know until we start.
Mhm.
We gotta start somewhere on it. So wherever that is, we need to get something going on.
Have we been here before?
Time
And I
I'm
think-
hearing a bump in your prioritization schedule.
Yeah, I mean, this could take weeks. And,
Well, it's part of the,
and part of this, we need to talk a little bit more about roles, which we have scheduled later today, so that we're all on the same page. Because the problem is if I step into a role that everybody doesn't agree that I have, it's gonna cause more problems.
now this all came about because we're doing cost allocation services to selected vendors. Is that what we're still on?
Yeah, so I'm recommending that you go, this is interesting because these were our two top firms with my former employer. And MGT was the lower bid, and in this case, Matrix is a lower bid. So that's why I'm suggesting. They're also offering us a longer period of time where they'll be able to answer questions or defend us should any issues come up with the report. So they're both very reputable firms. They're nationally known for the work they do. The one thing I want to point out is that MGT does have more Colorado experience, but in this case, it's not that important that they have. I mean, these firms are very good at figuring out what laws they have to meet in every state that they work in.
I guess this kind of came a little out of the blue when Jody talked to us about this. And you said that your interpretation of the law may be slightly different than our understanding. So if I hear you correctly, we don't know for sure if this is required or not, but we've not been told by
It
you.
absolutely is required for you to have this study and an agreement. You may have to have a negotiated agreement, and that will be determined. But that's required by 2 CFR 200. You have to have a compliant indirect cost allocation study.
By whom?
Well, you could do it yourself, but we don't have that kind of expertise here in this county. They have software and they know how to ask what questions from each department and look at your financial records to pull that information in. So I would highly recommend going with a firm. And so I know Jody brought it up. Jody believes that we are now required by the state to have a consulting firm. It's not exactly how I read it, but I don't know if you looked at that very much, but you do have to have this kind of a study, and you have to have some sort of an agreement, possibly a negotiated agreement. That's not been determined yet. We have to show it to the state agency to see what they want. But both of these proposals cover us if we have to negotiate it with the federal government. I highly recommend you go with a consulting firm. You don't have the staff or the expertise right now to do this on our own. We're not going to save any money, and you're going to make it back, because if you have true indirect cost rates, you're going to bring in more revenue.
How do we make it back whenever the indirect's already fixed in the grants? All the grants that we're dealing with is fixed.
I don't
think they are.
They're fixed.
I don't think they.
Yeah, I
all
don't
of
think
them
they are. You may. So let
Some
me
of them
tell,
are given, de minimis 10%, but others have a category for you to actually book them and track them
it's not fixed.
correctly. So
I-
they're not all
The
The
fixed.
only
grants I've
grant
looked,
I've
the
ever
contracts I've looked at. was
That's
under-
because you haven't been applying for it.
The contracts I've looked at
Uh-huh.
downstairs,
Uh-huh.
specifically, that's been my dive into the Rio Grande County grant world, was, it was just there.
So unless you have this report that documents to the federal government standards that your indirect is 30%, you have to only charge 10%.
The de minimis.
And that your contract is not the government telling you how much indirect you can charge. It's what you can charge that's 2 CFR 200.
Right.
So the only grant federal grant that I've ever seen that doesn't allow indirect, and there's probably others, but because I didn't do health, and I did all public works, airport,
Right.
emergency services, is the LIHEAP energy conservation grant that does weatherization. They limit you to 10%, but that's really, I'm looking into this Homeland Security grant that we get because I was told they don't allow indirect. As far as I know, all Homeland Security grants, because those are the grants that I dealt with for my former employer, allow indirect. So I'm going to look that one up because it's a different, what we call a CFDA number than the ones I've dealt with, but I will look that up. But the reason why you're not getting your full indirect is you don't have this report.
You don't have a process in place to actually bill it. And
I believe that part of it, but I'm not sure that the grants we're referring to even allow for more. It may be just a de minimis thing we're talking about, that you brought up, and there may be latitude for more.
I'd
If
be
that's-
happy to research that. I can do that very quickly. That's what I did for my former employer. And we actually, the state sometimes will tell you that indirect is allowed and they're wrong.
Right. And so, I mean, I don't want to, I know I'm beating this to death, but I've been asking these questions for months. And I think the material, they have to do with who we have working for us. They have to do with if we owe money or not. If the money's been misspent, it has to do with public trust. And I don't want to drag it out. And I'm willing to go dig, but I don't want to be digging around in another department's stuff. And the public health director should be able to at least point us in the direction. And I can tell you the way they physically keep track of this downstairs is they have a book for each grant, a 3-ring binder.
They should.
So you can go through there and see every reimbursement request. But some of the grant contracts that I saw made no mentions of any line item expenses.
Do you see why I'm telling you this may take hours?
Well, but I think some of it is pretty much fire and forget. Okay, this is not a problem, it's not a problem, this isn't a problem. Problems are here, here, and here. And what I pointed out is 2 areas where I know there are problems. And that's where I'm really focusing right now. And there may be more. I mean, like buying half the county's paper out of the community care grant.
So what I'm telling you is that, some of this might have to be discussed in executive session because we're kind of veering into that area where it really shouldn't be a public discussion. But the other part is that I have to do at least some preliminary investigation to see what we're dealing with and then report back to you a plan. Because this is not something that I can just go and spend the next 2 weeks on and bring something back to you because I don't know what's really going on.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Well, I guess where I'm also was headed with this and circling back, and this is why people hate me, is nothing I've heard about this tells me that in fact it will help us with the grants that we currently have. We don't know.
So
We don't know what's
generally
allowed.
speaking, if you've already accepted a grant with a contract that does not have indirect in it, you can't get it. We did, with my former employer, all of our FAA grants for the airport, we had not claimed indirect. We went back to FAA and negotiated to be able to start charging indirect.
Right.
So that is possible. It depends on the flexibility of the agency. But why you need this is those grants are yearly allocations. And you can, some of the grants like in DSS and health are 3-year obligations. But going forward, then you can start charging what we call true indirect. You're just charging de minimis now.
Mhm.
And true indirect, probably for the health department, because their grants and DSS are labor heavy, your indirect will be substantial.
Over there.
Yes.
But
it
she's
might
gonna
be
do this
30%.
anyhow, right? According to Jody, we have to do this for her department anyhow. Right?
Yeah, but you should be doing it for any department that gets more than one federal grant. And we can talk about how we're going to structure that with the
But
consultant.
right now, Jody is the one that brought it to our attention, and she says we have to do it to comply. Is that correct?
Well, you have to have the study to comply to CFR 200 if you're not, if you're going to charge true indirect. Otherwise, you're stuck with 10.
Okay, so
But on her grants, what she's talking about is they're no longer accepting 10% de minimis. They want to see this report.
okay, that's part of my question. We're not required to do that in other departments or agencies yet.
I don't know that that extends to other departments besides DSS.
Okay. And
But you're required to do this for other departments to charge more than 10%.
I got that part.
Okay.
When I went, are we required right now to pick a company and contract with them for so many $1,000s a year?
Mhm.
And if so, what does that really mean to us? And how much is it gonna cost? How many departments are
Okay,
covered by
so
this?
I
For
figured-
instance, we get HUTF money, we get federal money as a,
Yeah, HTV, that's a whole different ball of wax. You don't
Okay.
get indirect on HTV.
we potentially could get federal money for the year, potentially.
Mhm.
Right now, we got the DOLA money, and I'm not sure what the source of that money was for this little project we just did.
It was the FAA. It was the FAA pass-through.
Okay. Now, there was no mention of indirect in that.
Probably not, because you haven't been,
Nobody.
you don't have a grant management policy. We will get that done. I can't go back and fix the past.
I'm not asking to fix it. I never heard, sitting on that board, I never once heard anybody at that agency that did the pass-through talk about an indirect authorization. That's DOLA. Okay, for that particular grant.
Because I'm just gonna say what I know about states, and I've talked to Thompson, which is one of the big managers of grants. States, they aren't gonna encourage you to ask for indirect if you don't, because that's their money then. They get. But it is your right to ask for it.
Oh, I'll be
And
talking.
you can be sure they're putting it into their piece of the grant.
I was
Absolutely.
gonna say, it's on their end, what they do.
Oh,
from
they're
the feds.
absolutely charging it.
Sure, and then they're gonna try to hold on to it.
And subrecipients are also charging you indirect.
Well, I don't mean to be obstructionist. I just don't know right now, is this something we want to deal with and pick a contractor right now?
Well, I think two things. I was looking at this and I see that we have legal opinion on this. And legal opinion is she thinks that we should take some kind of action on it towards it, supportive of it.
I'm gonna make a suggestion. If you don't feel comfortable with your understanding of why we need the consultant to create these reports and help monitor the processes in managing the grants, that you set a workshop for it so that it can be fully explained to you and you set it immediately. Not next year, not next month, but next week. So that it can be accepted on the next board agenda.
Well, that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to have a work session where I can finally get all the handle all the way around this thing. So I think we just need to go ahead and set that. So.
And legal counsel told us we have to set it for next week, so. You got a date in there?
Legally, we're obliged to do that.
She's giving me the stink eye now, because it took up all this time.
Well, I think it's an appropriate decision for the board to fully understand what you're contracting for. I'm going to tell you that it needs to be done because you do not have a forensic accountant on staff that can follow the money. And having done that to the tune of $42 billion for one company, it's an important step. But I want you to fully understand what it is you're contracting for before you
Right.
obligate the monies. And I think that's only appropriate.
And I can try and get you, the fine print explains all that in the Federal Register, so I can get you maybe bigger type. if you want to read all the-
I can, I can,
the regs.
I'll figure out a way. I mean, I can read this, it's just difficult. But that's okay. I just wanted to make sure, we've done it, we're gonna set a date. I just wanted to make sure that in my own mind, was this a requirement right now, or is this something we should be doing and looking at? Because it will be either to our benefit, or it's gonna be required.
It's
As a condition.
requirement if you want to charge your true indirect.
I understand that.
And it's a
but if-
requirement for Jody. So you could just choose to do it for Jody, which would slightly reduce the cost. But I am going to recommend that you do it for all grant receiving departments because you will get a considerable amount of revenue. that you're
I
not
believe
getting.
you on that.
Okay.
I'm quite certain it will more than pay for itself.
It will make.
Well, that was
more.
Jody's assertion that it would more than pay for itself.
Just some of the, like public health and DSS, because they're so labor dependent, and that's something you can charge indirect on, they tend, the indirect cost rates tend to be around 30% instead of 10.
I'm all for getting a line, a bigger chunk if we can. So you and I have a meeting at 10 on Wednesday next week.
Yeah, I've got a lot of meetings scheduled next week, so I'm trying to pull up my calendar. I'm meeting with all the department heads next week, but I've got spaces.
Is that our management team meeting that was set for the 14th?
Yeah,
Is it still set for the 14th?
yes.
Okay.
I
was a week ahead of myself
We
when I
could do it
responded to your email.
We could do it Monday, or we could do it before the public health workshop, but John, you wanted to meet at 10 on that day, so maybe.
Oh, the public health workshop, isn't that this week?
That's tomorrow.
Oh, that's
tomorrow.
tomorrow, excuse me, I'm looking at the wrong calendar.
That's what happened to me. last week.
And Monday is a holiday.
Yeah,
So
Monday's Martin
when's-
Luther King Day.
Wednesday
the
afternoon.
20th?
yeah. I mean, I'll just
20th we're meeting.
reschedule with these guys. Go ahead and set it when you want, and I'll reschedule with the people that I was gonna meet with.
It can be after our meeting. What, you're the one with the docket.
My Wednesday is open. The
So next
20th,
Wednesday.
my Wednesday is
It
open.
was. Sorry.
Right.
Okay.
Do you wanna meet at 10?
We have a meeting at 10 on Wednesday.
But if we can move our meeting to over here, if we're gonna do a back-to-back and set the
That's fine, we
workshop
can
for
move
11.
over
Let's set the workshop for 11
Okay.
on the 20th.
Next Wednesday, the 20th.
Yes,
Where are we meeting at?
there, right here.
right here.
Because there's a tourism meeting at 8 o'clock on Wednesday. That's a work session meeting.
At 8 o'clock.
It's at 8. It's the work session is for an hour and then I have a meeting after that. And it's about an hour and a half for that meeting. So
So you're gonna run into 10 with that
easily. Yeah.
easily and run right up to 11. I'll follow you over here from your house.
All right, so we'll start over there
Yeah,
at 10 and be here at 11.
Okay.
that work? Okay. All right.
That was easy enough.
Sure it was.
All right.
So we lost our Zoom meeting.
Oh, it went away?
I didn't lose it.
Oh, everybody's looking at my calendar now. I'm sorry.
That's why you need a separate computer.
Yeah.
That's all right. It's still going.
Yeah, it's
Now everybody knows what I'm doing.
Okay.
yeah. My photographic memory blinked on that though.
I forgot to take out my golf appointment.
I'm sorry. So that has been essentially tabled or set aside until after our work session.
Yes.
No.
It's request to join employers.
What's that?
Is this something we might be able to talk about at the same time we talk about the other? Since nobody understands what this is.
Sure, if you have a lot of questions.
At your next meeting, is what you're saying?
Well,
At the
At
workshop,
the workshop.
and then it would be put on next board's
You
agenda.
can just if you're this, I think we can go through it pretty quickly unless you just have a lot of concerns about it.
You know, I don't know enough about it to have a concern at this point. And it sounds kind of lame, but I really don't. It's like, okay.
Give me a nutshell. What do you think? Tell me about it.
It's a membership service that provides a really broad array of human resources. The membership price for our size of an organization is roughly 6,000, and for that, then we would get up to 30 hours every year of both HR specialists and legal counsel support. It's really, really helpful for the big things that don't come up very often, which we hope doesn't come up, like workplace investigations. It is extremely helpful for day-to-day things. And the example that was just in recent weeks is we had a question of, does the e-sick leave carry over into this calendar year? Ryan spent time, Deborah spent time, Debbie spent time. It would have been in Deborah's inbox had we been an employers council member.
Okay, my question is we are a member of CCI and CTSI, and there are legal counsel above and our insurances
They do some
and
similar things.
HR stuff.
Mhm.
Is this not covered in what we do with them? I mean, we
It's
can pick up the
different.
phone and call one of them and get that answer.
It's a different set of resources.
Yeah, I had a pretty serious personnel incident when I worked for another county in this area. And, you know, we certainly involved CCI and CTSI. They were not able to counsel us on exactly what we should be doing in this situation. Mountain States came in and did an investigation. We ended up turning it over for a state investigation. And they just sort of walked us through because it was high risk litigation if we hadn't done everything right. So I mean, I think that they're like an essential service.
Well, I'm not saying no to it. I'm not opposed to it necessarily. I just don't know why.
It was the same thing I first asked, learning about CTSI. One thing that everybody agrees on, at least in concept, is that we need to fine tune our marketability of our wages. And within that context, also perhaps look at our compensation structure and classification plan. That employers council would more than pay for themselves in being able to use them as a resource to do that rather than muddling through that.
So does this, on the other one, and I am not gonna, I'm just want to find this out. On this other one here, we just talked about, there was a list of counties available that shows you that, you know, like La Plata was on there and several use this. Do we have something that shows any of the counties we deal with?
Oh,
on a
no,
regular-
we could get that. We could get a customer list. They're very, very extensive. And the helpful thing is they also cover private business as well.
Of course, if they haven't used it, I guess it wouldn't matter anyway.
Yeah, so when you go to compare salaries, especially for something that carries between public and private, like an accountant or general labor, we're able to then compare what is the market in our area, not just for public specific.
Okay, so what we could use this for then is if we decide we want to do that labor dollar cost study like we talked about, this could be used instead of just getting on the phone and calling the different counties okay.
And the other thing that they do that's kind of worth their weight in gold is they keep up with all the changes in human resources law, which is constantly changing so that you don't have to keep trying to figure it out.
How much training do they have available to train Deborah?
A lot.
So she can take a lot of training through this program.
Now, you should also know that part of their services are an additional fee. And if you go to a training class, you're going to pay an additional fee. it's not included with your membership. So what you got in your packet, there's a list of included and a list of for fee.
So we sign this and we get down and say September, October, we're looking at how long are we locked into this? Is it a year to
It's
year?
an annual
It's an
membership.
annual membership?
Rotating your membership.
Can we deal with this Wednesday? Next Wednesday?
Next Wednesday, next,
Because you could give us a list of counties or somebody that's actually using this you talked about.
we can. I don't know how meaningful it's going to be to you because it's
Yeah.
going to be a huge
Comfort
list.
factor.
Huge list.
Every entity that I've ever worked for has a membership.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing against it. I just want to make sure it's something that we're not already covered in. I want to spend money on something we're already getting through CTSI, and if it's not there, well then, especially if we can get training and advance our
And,
resources.
things like background checks, they do that that service also. And Deborah's gone through several different third parties trying to find a really effective method of doing that. So having the membership would give us the ability to use them, even though it's an additional fee for that service.
But you could give us even a list of the benefits that we would get.
It's in your packet. In your packet, yeah.
That's all this stuff.
I didn't see
I didn't
that
see
one.
those pages.
Followed the blue ones. Yeah, the list of included after that.
Different page.
Mhm.
I don't. Not sure. I see that in.
Employers council services included with membership.
It looks like that.
Right, that's what I'm
On
looking
the
for.
back of one of your blue ones.
This is the copy that came, this is the copy I had and it wasn't on there, but this is the copy
Get
that you printed for me. And it didn't come out. This wasn't in the stuff that's on the counter. So this is it, right? I got it.
It was the same thing, but that's all right.
I know I got it. It was on this one, not on that one. I was looking through this. And that's why I
I'm
was
gonna
trying to
print
figure.
those single sided.
So you had them printed a separate one
Well, there's two different sets of this paperwork here.
that was in the packet? Or
Yeah. And then this is the one that was up there.
because I haven't seen that, and I don't see it in my packet.
You have this?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and a previous employer, they were a member of this, the rural electric. Were a member for years of this organization, Mountain States Employers, and they did a lot for the company.
I can tell you with a certainty, just keeping up on the HR laws
Yeah,
alone,
alone.
you're gonna use, I could easily charge the county 30 hours a year for that, but
Right.
easily. So, I mean, pay them or pay me. I just assume you pay them because they do it as a regular course of
Yeah.
action.
So just put this on for Wednesday, the 20th, and we'll do some study. If you, any information you think we might need other than what we have
Would
here.
it be helpful for us to see if we could get them online so you could ask questions directly to them?
You're talking about the 20th being the work session.
Yes.
Workshop
So you would take action then at your.
Next meeting.
at
Next
the
meeting,
28th,
yep.
right?
Okay, we good?
We're good.
Okay. Number E, I always wanted to do that in the meeting.
Got it, man.
Consider the approval of internet service for the airport pilot shelter.
Earl was not able to be here this morning, but you have a staff memo on that, and he also provided some additional information that was just,
They give us a cost. I didn't see cost on there.
it was
Yeah.
like 52
A month.
a month.
So he's gonna get the standard, he's just getting standard Wi-Fi there through Cielo. Is that what it is? $52 a month.
I do not know. I'll have to look at that agreement.
But he indicated in there that he thought that the Flight for Life Guardian or whatever it was might have bailed himself of this. if we had it out there. And I'm not sure if they can access, because of distances, the Wi-Fi in the pilot shelter from their hangar, or if they come to the pilot, it was unclear how this would benefit them. And the next question I had is, they're already using some sort of internet out there because people are doing online flight planning.
Sure, they're using their hotspots.
Okay,
You have good cell connection out there, yes?
as I understand it.
Cielo is out there too. I was out there the other day and they've got the Tyco, they're in with glass clear to the airport. Cielo is.
So they've got the fiber.
Yeah,
optic
they've
already
got
out
it.
there.
They've got the fiber out there.
But then it would be a matter of running it from wherever they're.
Yeah, either that or they can, and it doesn't look like it'd be that big a deal for them.
To get to that pilot
Yeah, to
shelter.
get to the pilots. Yeah,
Are they gonna, do you know if they would typically put it underground?
they can go both ways. I know in the past they've done it both ways, and they're only gonna have to, you're not dealing with a whole cable. To get access, what they need would be one fiber, so.
Right, I'm just thinking if they're going either over or under taxi.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
They
thinking.
could, well, I know there's been places where they board, so they can do whatever to get it there. And I don't think, in the past, there wasn't a charge for the installation. It was just like the monthly.
That's
Bill.
what their contract says.
Yeah.
Right, so it'd just be
Yeah.
monthly access.
Yeah,
But I don't know what we've got. I mean, I haven't thought about it in terms of overhead and poles.
both,
And
basically,
taxiways.
when I was out there, the power line comes in and it goes right to the edge of, as you're coming around.
Right,
It goes right to the edge of the hangars, and then a lot of that is underground
Underground
for
from there.
simple, for
Right.
logistics. In my opinion, it'd be better if it was all underground in an airport,
right.
but it does come in there and it goes underground to all the hangars and everything at that point.
Right, that power line.
Yeah, that power
Right.
line.
So,
Well, what does Eagle Air have out there now? Do they have anything out there at all?
I have no idea. They might be doing hotspots.
She's right. They could be on,
Yeah.
I suspect.
jump on it, unless it's secure.
They're just doing their flight planning and
Yeah,
weather checking
yeah.
and stuff like that. I don't know. That's one of those, it all of a sudden start triggering that 30 questions that I always have.
The reason I asked about the $52 is usually the minimal power
Service
service.
connection.
So
It sounds like minimal service.
if they're trying to reach, I'm just wondering if maybe when we get ready to do that, we should talk to Eagle Air and say, if Cielo can do it and put in the bigger one, would Eagle Air share the cost on it or something with this tablet? That might be a conversation to have with them or in
Yeah, because it says it's 25 megabits
so that's.
That's-
and then
at
I-
$59.95.
That's basic service.
Yeah,
And
that's
I'm
low
concerned
end.
If he's talking about a flight school and all these other people using it, I don't know.
You're
if
gonna
that's
have to
do
up
it.
that.
Yeah, and I don't know what 100 runs, but I know a 50 would probably be good enough to get across there. Because they could put a booster in there if they wanted to. They still have a
Looking at
booster for that system.
$129 and change every month. It's
For-
$130 a month
For
For,
for
100.
the top of the line
and that's
Cielo.
100,
fastest CLO that's offered.
yeah.
Can't you
What I have
not
in my
recoup that
office.
with a small fee
You
that
know.
everybody contributes?
Do you have?
Well, it
5
might be
years?
something we could
Yep, and they buried it
address.
for me, free of charge.
They won't, I'm on a ditch. Let's see.
That
You're
has
losing a lot of
broadband
your speed,
problems.
They
John.
wouldn't run the last mile, huh?
You're losing a lot of your speed.
I know it, but they
Because
wouldn't
it's
run the last
glass
mile.
to it, yeah.
Yeah,
They would
That
not do it.
last
Oh, I
mile is a
know.
problem.
Yeah, my neighbor 1 mile away has got it.
Got glass to the door,
Right.
yeah,
yeah.
And
so
they wouldn't run
It's
it.
great,
yeah.
screaming fast.
Oh, it is, it is.
So
Oh, and they talk about it's a laser
I'm
and it's like
jealous.
at the speed of light.
Right.
So,
That's spectrum.
So could Earl get us some more information on this?
Do you just want to table this to your next meeting and have Earl here?
Well, he needs to know what we're looking for.
So why don't I talk to Earl and ask him to look, say that we're concerned that's not high enough, and is there a way that he could kind of get a cost sharing plan together to pay for the higher service?
yeah,
Okay.
And then I would also talk to Cielo and see if they're willing
Yeah,
for one service to go underground and
Yeah.
bore under the taxiway.
I have no doubt that they probably
They'll
will be, but it'd be
Put it
good.
in your electric service conduit or in the telephone service conduit that you've
Yeah,
already got to the.
Whatever's
pilot's house.
existing, they can
That's
blow
what
it
they did
through.
with
and-
mine. They pulled it right in through
Yeah.
the same conduit.
Yeah,
They've got a taxiway across. It doesn't have that kind of access. What I'm worried
There's
about is
conduit
if
under?
they decide to go overhead and there's a pole out there.
no, they won't. I know they won't, because that's against all the, rules. But like
Yeah.
she's saying, if there's a conduit where they're feeding the electric, they could just blow it through that conduit
Sure.
and pull it.
Can I ask here, the people that are coming into the airport are mostly local, or do you also have destination flyers that come in?
Now, we have destination flyers, not a lot,
Uh-huh,
okay? We have the locals.
uh-huh.
And let me go back to the destinations. Some of our jet and high-end traffic tends to be people who have business function out here
Uh-huh.
and come in for that.
Okay,
The other major user is the Guardian Air. And they have frequent flights a day.
is that like a charter?
No, they're
Flight for life.
Flight for
Flight
life.
for life.
Oh, flight for life, okay.
And then the rest of it, I mean, there's hobby type flying out there.
Okay. I'm just trying to think about.
But we're at a shift, a transition right now on that airport. In part because they put the new runway in to accommodate Guardian Air, but now that's made it accessible to jets. And so now we're starting to see that, because prior to that, jets went to Creed and Fort Monte Vista.
Creed, ooh,
Well, a lot of the rich people have homes up there.
I know, but that must be fun to fly in, Creed.
It's,
I seen them test Ty Poxon's
going
Lear
into
one
Tahoe.
time
It's a little
above
hairy.
Creed, and I mean, it went straight
Straight up.
up. Oh, and the noise,
Yeah.
I was awesome. It was
Yeah,
totally
they'll do
awesome. In
They can-
Creed.
And those planes can take off 14,000 feet elevation if they have to. But
I'll let him know that.
But
And
we just need more specifics, and that's, speaking of that, when these departments come to us with proposals, anticipate the questions. How much it's gonna cost? Will it work?
And I want to get to that point. I have been drinking out of a fire hose, and everybody also wants me to do like fill out vouchers and all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, ah. So that's the point we want to get to, but we're gonna be talking about redistribution of duties, so it frees me up to do county administrator stuff.
Did you take my second page of the
I just threw it away.
agenda? Thank you. I mean, I can sit here and not move anywhere, and these pages disappear.
Who's the middle agenda? We're on the third page.
Oh, is this the, no, that's not, that's part of the matrix. Okay, thank you. Okay,
So we tabled that until the 27th. And so letter F now,
thank you.
consider approval assignment of lease on the hangar.
And that's the
Discussion.
Wolf Creek Ski what, Corporation?
Yes.
Is that Dusty Hicks?
It's Davey.
Davy Pitcher.
Okay,
This was one that was also fairly recently completed, but we'd like it on the better format, so we'll be following up. If you should approve it, we'll be asking them to redo it on the new lease.
I redid the lease. So if you look at paragraph 6 regarding assignments, it requires that they notify the county administrator, preferably 30 days in advance, of any transfer, assumption, assignment, sale, whatever, so that this can be presented to you as a board in a timely fashion as opposed to after the fact. Now, the idea in assumptions and assignments is that you will not withhold allowance of that unless there's reasonable cause. Well, how the hell do you know if you're just seeing it after it's already been done? So we're going to require, as part of their lease, that they let you know in advance So if you have any questions, you'll know whether or not to approve it, but given that it's a done deal, you can't withhold your approval.
Right. I'd make a motion that we approve it then.
Second. A motion second to approve the lease hangar for, that's in front of us. All those in favor?
Aye.
And those revised forms will be on your next meeting for approval of the forms.
What's that?
The revised lease form will be on your agenda for the next.
I only got it to her, Monday, I think it was. It was crazy.
All right.
We're running past all sorts of time here, I'm sorry. One of the things that we ran into on one of these is where the proposed lessee, assignee, purchased, of course, the hangar as personal property. And there was a bill of sale issue there. And my suggestion was that whenever they come to us with this application, that they make sure that they get the bill of sale before they actually execute the lease. Because it's possible you can execute the lease, not get the building, and according to our operating plan, they have 90 days to tear the building down.
I don't, that doesn't make any sense. In order to put their contract for purchase together, that's what you would need to see is their contract for purchase of the hangar, not already the bill of sale. If the bill of sale is a done deal, you're not going to have any say about approving an assumption of the lease.
The bill of
It's a-
sale is just for the personal property,
But
which in theory, and we have in the language. in
typically,
the-
the contract for that bill of sale is going to include an assumption of the lease or an assignment of the lease. I, as a broker, wouldn't even begin to put together that kind of a deal that,
But we've had it happen in the
well,
last year.
and so that's why we've changed the lease so that they have to notify the county 30 days prior to any
Right.
transfer pending. That's the smart way to do it. You really don't want people buying hangars without an underlying lease. And you
Well,
really
the
don't
issue
want
was
people
some-
leasing things without the hanger on it.
Without the hanger on it was the issue, because if there's something happened, that it gets tied up, let's say I sold you my hanger, they're gonna get the county to say, okay, you can assume my lease. I'm gonna sell you my hanger. I die, you go into the estate. The guy has the airport lease assignment. According to our own rules, he's got 90 days to remove any personal property, including the hangar. And I just want to make sure that we don't run into those kinds of snafus.
No.
And we actually had it didn't die, but it was one of those where it was like, nobody died, but it was one of those that got it backwards. And you can do the purchase contingent upon assignment of the lease and what have you. There's ways to do it, but it hadn't been done. This guy's hanging out there.
Well, and that's why I want them to notify the county 30 days prior to any bill of
Right.
sale.
That's got it. I'm sorry, yeah.
So it's done. The language is done.
And I'll rewrite
I don't know if we
that
could-
process, that overview process to reflect that also.
Yeah. So it'll be on your next agenda.
We're gonna have a board retreat.
That's for goal setting and setting the work plan for staff for the coming.
Cancun?
I think we should probably have it in Cancun. We got an airport. So I'm gonna suggest maybe the week after your regular meeting on the 27th. Getting in first week of February.
Al, what's this retreat look like?
I usually ask for 4 hours. So what it looks like is prior to that, I'm going to be meeting with all the department heads and finding out what their recommended priorities. And I'm going to put a caveat on this. Some departments have been used to setting their own priorities. You really need to put a stamp of approval on those. So we'll be assembling some sort of a thing that shows what all their priorities are, what my priorities are. You will prioritize them for us, And then I'll come back with you for a work plan on how that will roll out, and then I'll start to report on our progress at these meetings. I'm trying to improve the communication that you have with departments about what they're doing, and make sure that we're fulfilling your priorities, because you really do set our priorities.
So if we're having a retreat, that's a meeting, it's public.
Workshop.
So is there,
I don't know that
It's
at
no
a workshop,
different.
I
people.
don't know that
It's
it
not-
has to be considered a public meeting, and it depends on. You're not going to be making any decisions.
but we're three, but we're a
You're
quorum.
gathered for the purpose of discussing county business.
Right.
What
but
Dennis Hunt's
You could
Yeah.
classify it as an executive session,
potentially,
potentially, particularly if it's to address chain of command and job descriptions for your county management departments. That's just my input.
CTSI's recommendation on retreats, because this comes up like, well, you really need to get away and just be able to talk.
And that is the way that a lot of places handle that, is to have it at a different setting.
They do a remote site gambling that no
shows.
public is willing to drive that far
Yeah.
to listen in. And that's exactly what it is. It's a workaround. It's a loophole. It's not even a loophole. It's just making it inconvenient.
So the purpose of the retreat is not necessarily to talk about organizational structure and job descriptions. It's to talk about your vision and your goals, which is a public
And that would be public.
conversation.
That would be a public meeting.
I don't see a retreat as being any different than any other public work session.
The difference, if you go have it in Keystone and nobody follows you over there.
But I'll just do exhibit A, all the people that are here for your regular meeting. I don't know that you're gonna have a lot of people in for the workshop anyway.
All you need is one.
Yeah,
And
I guess you don't
All you
have
need
to
is
let
one.
them
It's
comment.
not a negative thing
They
to have
don't-
public attend.
Yeah, they don't have to participate. You don't have to call on them for comment, or, it is a meeting between you and your department heads and your county administrator. So it's not like you have to take public comment and they get to decide whether they are gonna weigh in on what your priorities should be. Because you'll be adopting those priorities at a regular meeting, and that's where they can weigh in.
I understand that aspect of it. But when we say retreat, historically, I've always heard that term used in, it's going to be a less formal, not as, I won't
That's what
say
it is.
less visible, but less opportunity for public to be there. They can make it, and nobody's going to stop them from driving there.
I've never had a problem with it, especially because I don't see that you have a lot of people here that, wanna.
You'll learn.
Okay, but I don't think it's a problem. They don't have to speak. You don't have to allow the public to speak at a workshop. You're taking in information from your department heads, you're asking questions, you're talking amongst yourselves of what your priorities ought to be. You're setting a list, and then you actually approve that list at a regular meeting.
I understand that.
So
I think he wants to change the terminology and not call it a retreat.
Well, a visioning session
Oh,
is
you can
also
call it a
common
workshop, you
thing.
can call
Yeah,
it
you picked up one.
Visioning session.
visioning. I want more specifics than vision.
The
but-
vision, developing a goal setting session.
Yeah, you remember when Dennis Hunt was here last fall or whatever, that's exactly what he talked about. It was that issue.
Then don't call it a retreat, call it a goal-setting
Goal
workshop.
setting. Sure, goal setting.
It could be a workshop for anything you want.
Right.
Yeah, it's be for just general management, nothing else. But,
So if we know we're gonna call it, do we know when we're gonna have it?
No.
Oh, we haven't set a date yet? I thought I missed that part. So we could do Groundhog Day.
Oh,
That's what it feels
perfect day
like,
to do
doesn't it?
Goal setting.
When is that?
February 2nd. You'll report to us of what the groundhog sees a shadow or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll
thank
do
you.
that, we'll do that early. I'll get that early information.
Is that gonna be it, the second?
It's up
Do I
to
put
you.
this in pen?
What time?
And we'll bring food in to make it more fun.
The second at 10.
At what time we gonna do it?
So what's your pleasure? I like mornings just because I'm more thinking in the morning.
If we get started at 10, and this is just personal, it makes
have
my
lunch.
day easier because we got things going on in the morning. On the ranch.
10?
If that works.
What do you have at 1?
I don't have one, I have work to do. I have another job.
Okay, so why don't we do it 10 to 2 and plan on having a lunch for everybody? Because I think it's nice to do in these. You want to have some informal conversation with your directors, be able to ask.
Where are you gonna
them.
hold it?
That is up to you. We can have it here, we can have it anywhere you need it. I can't tell you because I'm not familiar with what your options are.
They're limited. In terms of if we're gonna have a meal.
You want to think about it? You don't need to decide
How many
today.
bodies is that gonna be?
Huh?
How many bodies is that gonna be?
There's gonna be, if we get management in here,
Probably like 8 to 10 people.
See if
And-
the
and some of it
Alex
might be-
available maybe.
you know, at some point, the three of us ought to be able to have a conversation.
Alex and
People can observe.
They've got a big open room.
We don't want all the peanut gallery necessarily chiming in while we.
Well, you
sit here and
control
ramble.
who talks when. That's within your control.
So you think 8 to 10 people, so are you gonna try to cater, or do you wanna try to set up where we meet somewhere in public? Like a restaurant?
No, not a
We don't
restaurant.
wanna do
You
it
don't
in a
want the
restaurant.
noise. Do you have, I mean, we can get food and bring it in. That's not a
We
problem. We'll
got,
take care of that.
we have next door
Yeah. The annex would be a.
that would
good
have enough
space.
room
Okay.
and have tables. We could have that set up for it. Just have are they still doing on the south end, public health still in the south end of, they were doing vaccinations or something there, I don't know what
Yeah, we'll have to see.
I
Gotcha.
can send out, do you want us to gather options and we can send them out? You can send back what you prefer.
Doodle, what do they call it, doodle pool?
Can I say something real
Doodle
fast?
pool.
Bobby has the schedule for the
annex.
annex, so you could pop in over there and see if it's free that day.
Yeah.
Are they giving
Probably a
shots
good
over there
idea.
now?
I haven't seen anybody in
Uh,
there today.
When I was with the other day, they still were set up in there.
But she has-
South end.
We're making this hard.
Okay.
Shake your head. Okay.
You're hungry? Is that what you said? Yeah, I am too.
Shall we take a break for?
Yes,
Yes.
I was getting ready to
I'm
mention
hungry.
that.
Well, we returned from the board retreat for commissioners administrator updates, which we can certainly do quickly later. And then we have our executive session. So where do we go eat?
Do you want to take an hour for lunch?
We've got 2 executive sessions, right?
I think only one.
And it says the second one down here on water rights.
Oh, yeah, two.
There's
Now,
two.
what is that about?
A general discussion about if you want. It's about the general topic of water rights in Rio Grande County and to get some direction from you about what direction you want to go, if any. General discussion.
Okay.
We can have half of the annex, which is still bigger than this room. They'll be doing that.
So we can have the wall up and just I'll have stand sets of tables up in there, space them out and stuff. Then we have the food catered right into the kitchen area if we need to use that kitchen area stuff. So. Okay.
So it's the annex.
Yeah.
So we want to adjourn until lunch? For lunch? She does. She's gonna be here for legal issues.
1:30.
1:30?
It takes us 40 minutes. I can run the subway that fast. The lunch line's already gone, I can tell you.
Subway.
So is the real meat. So. Ready?
Yeah.
Is that good for you?
Okay.
Do you have a motion?
I move that we adjourn until 1:30.
Second.
So move it, bro.
All right. You gonna go home and eat?
Yeah, I missed on lunch date. She called, she left a message earlier, said, I'm having coffee and have lunch if you want to meet up there. And I just sent her a text back, I said, yeah, I can do that. And she said, I said, that was an hour ago, we're already done.
Yeah, I missed my lunch date too.
So,
That's why I said subway.
we're back at 1:30.
Let me buy you a sandwich.
Huh?
Want me to buy you a sandwich?
Oh, I can go buy a sandwich. I'll buy you one.
I'll leave all this junk here.
Secret, watch out, Pelosi left her laptop on her desk.
Yeah, Secret Service snagged it up, huh? Or special
Somebody,
forces or
special
somebody.
forces, I don't know. Depends on which conspiracy you're